In today's video, I wanted to begin my adventure through the main story featured in Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor. Some of you may have clued in from my earlier videos that I'm a massive Lord of the Rings fan. I love the Tolkien universe, everything from the diverse network of characters all the way to the rich and simple stories. Above all else though, I'm infatuated with the lore. I can't get enough of the universe's details and history. From the creation of Arda, to the many theories surrounding Tom Bombadil, to the life and death of Feanor. It's a lot of information to absorb, but it's definitely the type of content that I really enjoy. Growing up, I mostly watched the movies and played some of the games, like War in the North, an incredibly underrated title at that. Suffice to say, my knowledge on the world was quite limited. Mostly it was what Peter Jackson and co. had shown me through the big screen. Now, fast forward to today. While I haven't read any of the books beyond The Hobbit, I'm constantly watching breakdowns of the various characters, landmarks, and events from various lore-driven channels here on YouTube. It's truly incredible what Tolkien was able to create, and how to this day there are millions of people still studying and breaking down his world. With all of that being said, I wouldn't say I'm a Lord of the Rings trivia champ or anything of the sorts, but all of those extra factoids have certainly helped me while playing through Shadow of Mordor. With that being said though, it certainly isn't necessary to have that much background information on the Tolkien universe. When this game first came out, I remember it being fairly popular. I wouldn't say it was on the same level of Skyrim or GTA 5 to pick the extremes, but it did have a pretty good run with its fanbase. I played it, liked it, but something wasn't quite clicking for me at the time. Personally, I never actually got to finish the game. I probably got a third or so of the way through, and I can't really recall why I stopped. If I had to guess though, it's probably due to a main mechanic of the game, something that I'll be discussing later. In any case, all these years later, and with a deeper appreciation for Middle-earth, I figured I'd try my hand at the game again. So, for this series, I'm going to play through the game and its main story. I'm going to listen to the dialogue, discuss important elements, gameplay mechanics, as well as my personal experiences. If that sounds interesting, then sit back, relax, and enjoy the tale from Middle-earth.
In the land of Mordor, where the shadows lie. It was here, on the slopes of Mount Doom, that the Dark Lord Sauron was defeated by a last alliance of men and elves. It is here that for 2,500 years the Rangers of Gondor stood watch, guarding against a nameless threat they had all but forgotten. And while the strength of Gondor faded, the power and malice of Sauron grew in darkness. He has returned to Mordor. Shadow and flame have fallen on the Black Gate, and no mortal man can stand in its path.
Is a perfect swing for killing chicken. Wouldn't want to hurt you. It'll take a lot more than that. Dear Hyle, the mighty chicken killer. Come on. Come on. Show your father what you have, huh?
The game's beginning is quite interesting. All gets revealed relatively quickly, and I don't want to jump ahead of the game. At first, we see the main character, Talion, in some sort of shadowy realm. Now, there's a flashback sequence to him and his son, Dirhael. This portion acts as combat training for Dirhael, but in reality, it's combat training for me. The game walks me through the basics, attacking and blocking.
Easy, son. You're not a soldier yet. have your guts. I'm all right.
Very quickly, Shadow of Mordor fasts forward to a much grimmer scene. Talion's outpost is currently under attack. These enemies are orcs, or in this case, uruks from Mordor. Honestly, the game kind of uses those terms interchangeably, and so will I. Trust me, I know that they're very different, but it's just easier to lump them into the same category. This is a continuation of my combat training, but this time, it's a bit more practical. Normally, I'm able to adapt to a keyboard and mouse's controls pretty easily. However, I really did not like the feel of it for Shadow of Mordor. The directional keys aren't dynamic enough, as Talion's movements are incredibly stiff and too literal. Not to mention, the action keys were completely foreign to what I was used to. Eventually, I'd switch over to a controller, and I'd get used to those controls instead.
These orcs are much stronger than any we've ever seen.
They're not orcs, they're Relics. They're far worse. There's too many. Go find your mother. Go find your mother. Keep her safe. I'll be right behind you. Go. Am I dead?
You are banished from death.
The main character I play as, at least one of them, is Talion, a ranger from Gondor and the captain of the watch at the Black Gate. The Black Gate is essentially the first defense against Mordor and Sauron's army of orcs and other nasty creatures. For quite some time though, it had been peaceful as the enemy lay dormant. Talion and his family have been able to live a pretty simple life there.
Happy anniversary, my love.
Alien, this is beautiful. Where did you find it?
I still have a few friends left in Gondor.
Did you talk to my father?
Yes, I did. And nothing has changed. He's still very stubborn.
I say we go anyway.
Dear, I will not come willingly.
There must be a better life than this.
Not now. But soon.
I'm just so tired of hiding here, Talion.
We must hide now, or we are both dead. Come on.
This portion of the prologue serves as an introduction to Talion's wife, Wraith, as well as the stealth mechanic for the game. Sneaking is the bread and butter for Shadow of Mordor. It's used to accomplish a lot and helps to pace many of the story's events.
Put the sword down, Ranger. The Black Hand wants him alive! Take her! He will live!
Come back to me, Elf Lord.
What is this place?
See for yourself. Now, do you believe me, Ranger?
What has happened to me?
You are banished from death. Cast adrift between the worlds of light and dark. Curse binds us together within the walls of Arda.
If what you say is true, then how do we break this curse?
We find the one who cast it on us. The Black Hand of Sauron.
I've always thought that the introduction to this game was done really well. It helps to set up the main characters, Talion's tragedy, the main goal, as well as that it brings passion to the objective. Revenge and curiosity are two incredibly strong driving factors. As detailed by the Wraith, the second character that I get to control, Talion and him are bound to one another. Their stories are intertwined. One of the first things I get to do as the Wraith is unlock a forge tower. This allows me to see the specifics of certain regions in Mordor, side quests, collectibles, and Mirian, one of the various forms of XP in the game. For those of you who don't really know what Mordor is, or the implications of being in here, it's an incredibly dangerous, scary, and hostile place. During the Third Age of Middle-earth, it's where Sauron, the embodiment of evil, and his servants reside. It's going to be tricky for Talion to get around undetected. For the most part, I control Talion in the corporeal world. Melee combat, stealth, interacting with the living, etc. Meanwhile, the Wraith is in control of the Wraith world. Shocker, I know. These mechanics come in the form of unique abilities that give me an extra edge over my opponents. So for example, I can use a ghostly bow, I can slow down time, I can stun my opponents, and I can also see into their minds.
Go back to him.
Suffer me now!
What do you know of the Black Hand of Sauron?
He is a fiend, made of thin air.
What more?
A slave I had, swears he fought him. I sold him for a cake of grog to Gimu the slaver.
Welcome to the highly complimented Nemesis system. If there's one thing that every single player took away from Shadow of Mordor, it's this. The Nemesis mechanic is a complex and evolving hierarchy system. The top dogs of Sauron's army are comprised of worms/informants, bodyguards, captains, and warchiefs. Essentially, each Uruk in the game is vying for more power. The only things they understand are strength and violence. There are always ongoing power struggles and conflicts between the NPCs. The game's AI has it to where every orc wants to increase its standing. Every time Talion takes down one, another takes its place. However, it's a lot more complicated than that. Some enemies have more influence than others, and some have higher power ratings than others. The higher the power rating, the more difficult the battle, but the better the reward.
That is where we have to go.
If one can trust an orc.
Trust has nothing to do with it. His thoughts cannot lie.
From here, the realm of Mordor is my oyster. Truly, it feels like the Nemesis system makes up a huge chunk of Shadow of Mordor's gameplay. Many of the main missions are attached to it, and it provides never-ending gameplay for this title. As you can probably see from the minimap, there are currently 2 main missions available to me. Often, in Shadow of Mordor, there are multiple smaller storylines going on at the same time. However, they all lead up to the same order of events. It's just a matter of different characters in different regions of Mordor. Within the game, there are of course all of the enemies, and believe me, there's a lot. However, there are also humans scattered around the Badlands too. Even though they're slaves and they aren't living in the best of conditions, it helps to make the world feel a little less lonely. Right now, my current objective is to find the captain, Gimub the Slaver, as he might have a lead on this Black Hand figure.
Well, this doesn't bode well.
Don't you see? The prisoner created a distraction.
From here, the Wraith insists that I go into the Wraith world in order to identify the captain. Doing so, Gimub becomes marked and I can begin to work my way over to him. While not mandatory, the game heavily suggests that I start by eliminating the orc archers. Since they're higher up, they can obviously see more of the area than the foot soldiers. Either by hiding in the bushes or skulking around camp, I can easily dispose of them via timed and charged arrows. Of course, depending on my actions, this can rouse suspicion amongst the other Uruks. That would then lead the survivors to investigate the area, and Talion would be at risk for getting caught. An easier and safer bet would be to take the high ground for myself. For the most part, so long as I'm sneaking, the foot soldiers don't really notice me when I'm up on the platforms. This makes towers, ruins, and any elevated structure an excellent option for getting around enemy camps. After a couple of takedowns, the game prompts me to go into the upgrade menu. Here, I can spend my ability points on new Wraith or Ranger abilities. The points are unlocked through XP, which is obtained via defeating enemies and beating quests. There's also the weapons and health upgrade menu. These can be fortified via spending Mirian, a currency that's acquired by collecting, completing bonus objectives, or by defeating certain orcs. These upgrades could lead to things like more health for Talion and more arrows for the Wraith. In any case, back to the matter at hand, since Gimub is the tutorial captain, the fight with him goes as you'd expect it to.
Aye! Another Shrock that needs to be put back in his place.
Him and his band of orcs are relatively easy to comb through. Honestly, the combat for Shadow of Mordor is really smooth. Since the game tells you when to counter, when to execute, and who's about to attack, it almost feels too easy. Rest assured though, this balances out with gimmicks and powers that come along soon enough. The captains and warchiefs obviously take a bit more damage to bring down. Well, for Gimub, I can take the fight nice and slow. I won't always have that luxury with the other bosses. After their deaths, they'll typically drop runes. These are even more upgrades and customizations for my character's loadouts. I can apply an extra ability to Talion's dagger and sword, as well as the Wraith's bow. As you'd expect, there are usually runes that prove more useful than others. Of course, it depends on the circumstances though.
So you didn't die 10 years ago.
I take it you did not come here to arrest me for treason, Captain?
You and I are all that remains of that garrison, Hugo.
Then why did you come here?
Looking for a slave that fought the Black Hand of Sauron.
More like ran away from him.
You know this man?
Of course. You're staring at him.
Where are the servants of the Dark Lord? Do you even know?
Perhaps.
This is no time to keep secrets.
I have been stuck here for weeks. Steady. Come to the outcast camp. We shall ask my scouts.
I'll be there. It's just another orc.
No. Someone who wants to be seen. We should tread with caution.
After that bout, I was introduced to two supporting characters. The first is Hirgon, a former member of the Watch at Blackgate. While we don't know what transpired between him and Talion, it didn't seem like the most friendliest reunion. Then, the second is quite the familiar face. Odds are, even if you've never seen The Lord of the Rings, you'd at least recognize Smeagol/Gollum. He plays an important role in Frodo's journey to Mount Doom, as well as Bilbo's origin story, so to speak. Either way, something that these newer Tolkien adaptations try to do a lot is throw in references to previously established works. It's typically done for fanfare. The player will recognize the character or item, and then possibly develop a deeper attachment to the work. I tend to agree with the general sentiment online, that sometimes it could be too much and the story would work great on its own. We don't always need to see a familiar face in order to better resonate with the plot. These references can also come at the expense of fractured timelines, making it just feel stranger. However, with that being said, according to what I read on some forums, Gollum's appearance in the game can match up with the timeline in The Lord of the Rings, as both take place during the late Third Age. Either way, rant aside, my next mission led me to the stronghold of Durthang. Here, I worked on a lead for this mysterious figure, the Black Hand.
Ranger, come close if you want the Black Hand. Those slave scum are pouring poison in your ear. Oh, but you cut these ropes. Ratbag will tell you everything.
Now, what would you know that all these other dead orcs did?
Go ahead, you bastard! Do it! I'll die, and you'll know nothing!
Maybe I'll grant your request. End your miserable
No. I was jesting. Look, those slaves are no match for the Orc army. Their schemes as rotten as barrel fish. But Ratbag can teach you the ways of the Orc. Ratbag can make your plan work.
We're going to find out what you know.
Interrogating the Orc, Ratbag, I'm able to gain valuable information on a captain named Goroth Caragor Tamer. This time, unlike Gimub the Slaver, there's a little more to Goroth. I hinted at it before, but half the battle for these captains and warchiefs is their strengths and weaknesses. For example, Goroth's weaknesses include a fear of Caragors and a vulnerability to mounted beasts. That's something I'll be going over at a later time. By utilizing those, he should make for a rather easy target. Now, on the other hand, he also has some strengths to worry about. Like, for example, he's invulnerable to ranged attacks, his heavy attacks cannot be countered, and he has a group of followers that'll come to his aid.
Your problem, Ranger, is the Warchiefs. Strong leaders they are. Now, if something were to happen to them, then they wouldn't be able to stop your little insurrection, would they?
I would hunt them down.
How? They're not very popular around here, and they know it.
But you can find them.
Oh, yes. Ratbag will show you the way. You help me, I help you.
Do not make me regret this deal.
Marvelous. Now let's stop faffing about, huh? First, I need to take care of a certain captain and a few Caragors. Come with me, Ranger.
For the next little bit, Ratbag leads me to the next quest area. The orc talks about how his goals and my goals are aligned. Once Goroth falls, someone will need to step in and take his place. With Ratbag, a quote ally, in my corner, he should be able to fill those shoes and get me closer to the Warchiefs. Ratbag then explains that the Warchiefs are a part of the Black Hand's inner circle. They answer directly to him, and knocking a few of them loose will be sure to attract his attention. From here, there's a brief battle thrown into the following portion of this mission. It introduces me to two more mechanics of the game. The first is an enemy type called the Defender. They carry huge shields and can't be damaged from the front. My goal then is to leap over them and take some swings at their backside. Like I mentioned before, the combat in this game gets built upon quite a lot. Then the second mechanic is having a follower in these battles. Ratbag gains a health bar and he proves to be a useless fighter. So it's now my job to babysit him and ensure that he doesn't die. This is the case for all followers in the game. Luckily, the fight is with just one group of Uruks, and when they're taken care of, the show goes on. Ratbag continues the conversation by elaborating on Goroth's weakness. He apparently keeps these wild beasts known as Caragors in pens. Even though he's got Caragor Tamer in his name, he's deathly afraid of them. Should even one get loose, he'll go running for the hills. This is officially where the action begins. From the nearest forge tower, I have to make my way further into Durthang, sneak past a garrison of orcs, and take out a captain, all without raising the alarm. That's right, if I'm seen, one of the orcs will go running for the warning bell, and luckily that'll just fail the mission. I don't have to take on a whole stronghold of enemies. Obviously, I mentioned it before while tracking down Gimub, but really, this was when I first noticed how overpowered the high ground was in the game. Shadow of Mordor gives you a lot of leeway if you're sneaking across elevated platforms. For the most part too, even after discovering their dead kin, the Uruks don't really do much about it. They get suspicious at first, but quickly they go back into their mundane guard duty. It's incredibly tempting to try and clear out the camp by assassinating them all, but a lot of times it just isn't that practical.
This looks like a good spot to get some shut-eye. Goroth will kill you if he catches you napping. Goroth never comes here. He's always by the hunting camp.
Goroth's in the hunting camp. So much for him always being in the same place. A captain who fears his own beast.
Fear is a powerful tool, Talion. Let's put Goroths to work.
Something I was thankful for was getting to flee Durthang. Trying my luck there and taking down Goroth would have been above my current skill level. On my way over to the hunting camp, I got a taste for what these Caragors could do. Out near the trail, there was a lone group of Uruks guarding a caged Caragor. Honing in on the lock with my elf shot, I was able to blast it off. Immediately, the beast had lunged through the door and it started tearing the orcs to shreds. It was most definitely a powerful and dangerous creature. However, something important for me to remember is that they're no friend to Talion. That thing would just as easily rip into me as it would any orc, Uruk, or goblin. After accessing a nearby forge tower, unlocking the ability to fast travel between waypoints, I was right above Goroth's hunting camp. I could already hear his fake boasts about hunting and taming Caragors. I'd assumed that the Uruks close to him did all of the work, while he took all of the credit. Classic group work mentality. Descending to a platform that was just out of sight, I took aim at the nearest Caragor cage and sent another beast loose. This allowed me to instantly locate my target, as Goroth began freaking out. The Uruk took flight to the nearby plateaus, and that's when I had to chase him down. The fight was rather easy, likely a symptom from Goroth being secluded and scared. I was able to take his health down in no time, and securing the kill, I received a live battle report from the Nemesis system. Here, I could see Ratbag advance through the ranks, taking credit for my work, becoming a captain and increasing his power level.
Hey, you two! Hey! Hey! I need you to take a body back to my tent. I'm gonna get me a trophy.
Get lost, scum!
We only take orders from Goroth. That's the filthy corpse I need you to carry. Now go! Go!
Say your fish!
Be respectful, you dunghill worms! Or it'll be your ear next time. Ratbag is your captain now. Let's go take a gander. Yeah, and when you're done with that, I've got more bodies for you to carry. Meet me at the crossroads. An old friend there is about to lose his head.
After completing the mission, the Wraith says that it's vital we use every struggle to our advantage. The orcs hate each other just as much as they hate Talion, and through that, we might be able to reach the Black Hand. Locking in on my next mission, I traveled to the nearest forge tower and came across one of Mordor's most dangerous enemies, a Graug. This gigantic troll-like being is incredibly powerful. It has a plethora of health, and every attack deals an immense amount of damage. If the Graug is good for anything, it's one of the only times that I find myself working with the orcs and uruks. The enemies focus all of their attention on taking this thing down, and they don't even bother looking at Talion. Although, for this attempt, the fighting didn't work out that well, and I got my pauldron smashed in. Luckily, the killing blow came from the Graug, as otherwise, I'd have a narcissistic uruk on my hands. That's something that I'll have to explain a bit later. Respawning is as simple as starting off at the nearest discovered forge tower. Either way, this time I shot straight for the quest's starting point and made it there no problem.
What sort of road it hides in the shadows, I wonder.
Something of great power has left its mark on him. I sense it.
And you feel he has answers?
For both of us.
We should find them then.
It shouldn't be too difficult.
Entering the Wraith world and switching over to the Wraith, I'm able to follow Gollum's footsteps across the terrain. This mission type, along with many of the others, is all about stealth. While this is one of the easier tracking quests, the idea is that the footsteps lead Talion in and around bands of orcs. From there, it's up to the player on how they want to proceed. Do I want to fight with uruks, free the slaves, and gain more Mirian, or do I want to slip past them undetected and work on my stealth skills? Along the way, Talion and the Wraith have many conversations. Talion does not trust Gollum and believes that he's leading the pair to their doom. Meanwhile, the Wraith feels as though there's some connection between him and this creature. Since, for the time being, the Wraith has no recollection of who he once was, following any lead that might shed some light on the subject is his top priority. Eventually, Gollum leads Talion into a Caragor cave. It's here that the pair loses the creature. However, what they find in his stead is much more useful.
What manner of spell is this?
A lost Talion.
You remember?
A few broken images, yes. And now I wish that I didn't.
Your family was...
Perhaps that pain is what connects us.
That's it, Patrick! Not even once!
As the Wraith put it, these two individuals, Talion and the Wraith, are likely linked because they and their families were murdered in the same fashion. It's some sort of blood spell, but there's still so much mystery surrounding it. Either way, now's not the time to ponder. As Talion defeats a Caragor, two well-placed headshots do the trick, and Smeagol escapes, a group of Uruk hunters rounds the corner and the fight continues. It's here that I'm introduced to the hunter-enemy archetype. Their main gimmick is that they throw spears. These projectiles need to be manually dodged. It's not that big of a deal, but now there's an extra step to combat that I need to keep in mind.
He will remember Precious. We will make him.
Yes. We must have it back. We must have it.
Quiet. Quiet, Precious.
They
think you could sneak up on me so easily, eh?
Mordor hurts us!
What does he know of it?
Bright Master. Yes, we knows. Bright Master came to us in our dreams.
You see.
Precious. It showed us. It showed us treasures of the Bright Master.
No more riches.
Yes, we swears. We swears to serve the Bright Master. We takes him to his treasures.
I do not trust him.
But we need him. Do you not wish to know who I am?
There are now 3 different main missions available to me. One of them is in the far northwestern reaches. It deals with Hirgon and his plan to draw out the Black Captain. The other 2 are pretty close to one another. They're more so in the southern region of Mordor. One's a continuation of Ratbag's ascension to Warchief, and the other deals with Gollum and the Wraith's lost memories. Since Hirgon's quest came before the other 2, I decided to embark for the Outcasts first. Now, towards the beginning of the video, I mentioned that I had once stopped playing the game because of a specific reason. That reason is something that I've touched on slightly already, but essentially, I wasn't and still am not a huge fan of having to always sneak around Mordor. While traveling from mission to mission, or waypoint to waypoint, most of Talion's movements have to be done stealthily. It doesn't feel like there's any safe area for me to loiter around in. I'm always looking over my shoulder, and my movements are impeded by the need to stay out of sight. Being spotted will almost always stir up a battle, and while at the minimum it'll just mean running away or fighting some orcs, at the extreme end it'll mean accidentally facing off against the captain or even dying. I will say, playing the game after all these years, I really don't mind it as much. Yeah, I still wish there were more safe areas, but I also understand that it's true to the nature of Mordor. It's an inhospitable, dangerous land where friends are hard to come by and foes are all too abundant.
Make yourself at home, Talion. We obtained some valuable information from this one before he lost his head.
These grunts know nothing. We're wasting precious time.
Wasting time? We've learned where they are keeping our blasting powder.
What need have I of blasting powder?
It's all part of the plan, my friend.
Whatever leads us to the Black Hand is my only concern.
So anxious to find the Black Hand. And by all means, I will take you to him. With any luck, the Uruks have yet to discover the secrets of the blasting powder. We will need to free my men to find out.
Do you believe the blasting powder can draw out the Black Hand?
I pray so. The enemy gathers at Uruk's Hollow, where many of my men are enslaved. I pray Eren, too, is there.
I will handle the Uruks.
Perhaps we can take a more stealthy approach and incapacitate them by using their weakness. Graug.
From here, Hirgon escorts me across the terrain and explains an alternate way of killing the Uruks. The orcs love Graug, their version of a strong alcoholic spirit. The ranger explains that by poisoning their Graug supply, the orcs will take care of themselves. In order to tamper with their alcohol though, we need to collect an herb called Hythalis. It's highly toxic and untraceable. Hirgon then changes the subject and goes a bit into his lore. It turns out that he was once a member of the Watch at the Black Gate. He was under Talion's command. However, Hirgon ended up deserting roughly 10 years ago. Why wasn't explicitly stated, although it's not that hard to imagine. Soon after his escape, he fell ill. That's when he met his current wife, Eren. She nursed him back to health, and that's when Hirgon became a part of the tribesmen who live in the region. Only recently, Eren was captured by the Uruks. Hirgon believes that she's being held prisoner at one of the nearby strongholds. Shortly into their conversation, the Rangers arrive at the first search point. Here, I have a small radius to look around in. The goal is to find 3 samples of Hythalis. In the area, there are a few Uruks on patrol. It's not too much to handle though, as an arrow to each of their heads does the trick. As I've mentioned before, there's a lot of leeway when it comes to stealth in this game. Taking down an orc only a couple feet away from others will take some time to rouse suspicion. Once this area is complete, Hirgon and Talion continue on to the next patch. Hirgon explains that the blasting powder we're after actually came from a dwarf. The Resistance here in Mordor, if you can even call it that, stole it from him. All is fair with love and war, I suppose. Our travels end up leading us through some of the orc hunting camps. We were honestly pretty close to the orcs, and some were even looking in our direction. It was at this part of the game where I realized it's almost always worth it to be in constant stealth mode. Never mind the high ground factor, just stay low and most of your problems will go away. Eventually, I landed on search zone number 2. It was a small area and only had 2 Hythalis herbs. The issue though is that there was a Caragor roaming free. Due to their acute senses, it's a lot harder to sneak past Caragors. They can often smell Talion and are able to spot me while I'm hiding in the bushes. Fighting them head on is also a bit of a challenge, as they can't be countered and deal a ton of damage. After the beast was slain and the herbs were collected, Hirgon leads me to the 3rd and final search area. Along the way, the ranger explains his mission in Mordor. Him and the other members of his tribe are attempting to free their kinsmen. Fighting the orcs head on seemed like an impossible task, so they thought of another way. They dressed up as slaves and attempted to free them from the inside. Only this would typically result in their capture and enslavement, so not the grandest of ideas. The conversation then transitions back to Hirgon's escape. Talion admits that he was the one who led the search party for Hirgon. Talion explains that he'd rather it was him who found Hirgon, as he didn't want his friend executed for desertion. Soon, the 2 men reached the final search area. This was the easiest area to gather herbs in, as there were no enemies nearby. Collecting the remaining Hythalis, the 2 rangers then hatched up a plan.
This should be enough. Now all you have to do is drop it into their grog.
Will the orcs not smell the poison?
No. But if they spot you, I doubt they will drink from it. The Uruks are stationed by the front gates. For the sake of my men, keep to the shadows. I'll gather my men and wait. We'll stand ready to seize the blasting powder once the camp is clear. Remember, Talion, don't be seen. These Uruks have killed many slaves for far less.
From here, the hard part begins, but it's also the fun part of the mission. Sneaking into Uruk's Hollow, the 5 barrels of Graug are placed at the opposite end of the stronghold. My goal is to sneak, kill, and distract my way past the residing Uruks. Honestly, the ambience here is unmatched. The Hollow is made up of a bunch of structures, huts, and barracks. It's quite dark over here as it's only lit by a few braziers and torches. There's a plethora of orcs wandering around, lording over slaves and patrolling the pathways. Really though, the coolest parts in my opinion are the sounds. I can hear Uruks shouting and growling in the distance. I can hear their aggressive songs and drunken chants.
Sucked a bunch of blood out of a slide yesterday, and it didn't make me feel nothing but good broadcast.
It's obviously just a layover of sound within the game, but it helps to really make it feel like the area is crawling with orcs. For the most part, sticking to the rooftops and taking out the archers did the trick nicely. I was able to traverse my way through Uruk's Hollow unseen and land near the barrels. What's more, most of their grog was unguarded. Their alcohol supply just sat secluded in the various nooks of the camp. Poisoning the grog, the orcs would wander over and cram it down their throats. If I understand the Hythalis' effects properly, the Uruks go mad with rage, turn aggressive towards one another, and soon enough drop dead, but not before taking off the heads of whoever's around. In terms of patrols, most of the orcs were stationed by the 2 barrels closest to the center. Those were the ones I assumed would be the trickiest, and technically they were, but not by that much. I just had to be a little more careful. Although, due to their positioning, I was able to time my drops and still stay out of sight.
Come with me. Come with me. Come on.
It's me! It's Hirgon!
My dear. I thought I'd never see you again.
I knew you were alive. I knew it.
There will be more battles, Talion, but we will find our peace.
Well, Hirgon and Eren are reunited, which is a fate that's hard to come by these days. I interpreted Talion's reaction as both frustration and sadness. Frustration in the sense that he wasn't able to get answers about the Black Hand, but also sadness in that he won't be granted the same fate as Hirgon. Talion's family is gone. The only chance that he might have at seeing them again is in the afterlife, possibly in the halls of Mandus, but even then, that's uncertain. Before heading into the next mission, there's a small mechanic that I forgot to mention. When it comes to the bow and arrow, or as it's called, elf shot, I have a starting number of 4 arrows. There are 2 ways of replenishing my incorporeal quiver. The first is by finding stashes of elf shot around Mordor. These are often in high up places, but their icons can easily be seen on the map. The second is through an ability with the Wraith. I can drain the Uruks of their life force and it restocks my elf shot. It's a more direct approach, but it's also more dangerous and I have to stick my neck out in order to do so.
Desecrate one more body and your corpse will join them.
Show me another treasure from your dreams.
Yes. We will prove ourselves, Bright Master. We will prove we are friends.
Take us to it.
Yes. Come. This way. Come on.
This mission, titled Shattered Memories, is another follower-based quest. Gollum leads Talion and the Wraith through more of Mordor's terrain. However, his shtick is that he prefers to stay unseen. There are no battles or fights. The only thing really is that Gollum will ask Talion to take out the eyes of the camps, the archers, or as he calls them, the sharpsies. It's an easy enough task though, as the game provides me with elf shot and the archers are relatively exposed. As Gollum continues to lead, you can really see his twisted personality come out. For those who haven't watched the movies or read the books, this creature has 2 personalities. The first one, Smeagol, is his softer and more compassionate side. He just wants the approval of others and can be seen as timid and docile. Meanwhile, Gollum is his aggressive and scheming personality. It's selfish, violent, and conniving. Typically, his personalities switch instantaneously, going from Smeagol to Gollum and vice versa. However, Gollum is usually prompted to take over when anything related to the One Ring is mentioned or brought up. Again, something that Smeagol does, which is fanfare squared, is that he mentions Bagginses. This is meant to be a reference to Bilbo, the Hobbit protagonist that took the ring from him, as technically the game is supposed to take place before the Fellowship of the Ring. I guess because it's somewhat relevant, it doesn't feel out of place or too forced, but I see what Monolith is trying to do here. It hasn't escaped me. Eventually, Gollum leads me to a search area and sends me off on my own. From here, I'm to follow his footsteps again. While he makes it seem like it's a dangerous area, I guess I got lucky in that there were no enemies nearby, making it an effortless search.
is so fine a gift.
What a gift. But where is the precious?
Come here!
Release him.
Why do we chase these dreams? They offer no answers, only more questions!
These are not mere dreams. With each vision, my power grows stronger.
Still looks after us. Ranger should go now. Very dangerous here. We wait at the ancient tower for him.
With each recovered relic, the Wraith gets closer to learning of his true identity. He almost seemed to be the ruler or overseer of a region. Furthermore, he also appeared to be a talented smith. Lord of the Rings fans and those who have played the game already know who this is. However, if you're still unsure, the truth is revealed shortly. In the meantime, I have to deal with a new enemy type, ghouls. These are actually very annoying foes. They're not strong and they don't have a lot of health. However, it's their numbers and their ability to swarm their prey that make them nasty creatures. It's very difficult to not take damage here, and there's no way to counter their attacks. The game's presented method of dealing with them involves racking up the damage multiplier and unleashing an ability called Wraith Flash. This causes a shockwave of sorts that kills off any of the surrounding ghouls. Although, as the saying goes, cut off the head of one and two more take its place. The fight definitely came down to the wire, and I had to perform a last chance action in order to stay in it. Fortunately for me though, I was able to come out on top and Talion lived to see another day, or I guess he continued to exist or whatever state of living he's in. From here, ghouls are now an enemy type for the rest of the game. However, they only come out in the nighttime and the orcs have no love for them either. Now, there are a few more quests for the main story that have opened up. One of them revolves around Gollum, yet again, and the other has to do with Ratbag. Certainly a shiniest of turds sort of scenario here. Wanting to mix things up, I decided to see what was going on in the Orcish society. Plus, Ratbag's quest was pretty close to an already discovered forge tower, so it was no trouble at all to get there.
You call this a duel? No! I call this losing a duel, you glob! Right here? Is that good? I'll just...
We'd better hurry, or he'll lose his head.
Awfully tempting, isn't it?
Blind his many eyes, and the beast can't see you coming.
This is the first mission in Shadow of Mordor that's put me on a timer. It certainly comes with its own set of anxiety and pressure. As per the Wraith's advice, my starting goal was to take the archers. For the most part, it wasn't that hard to do. Really, the kicker was that I had gotten too confident. Accidentally jumping right in front of some orcs, the jig was quickly up. Every orc in the vicinity was coming after me, including Graug the Twin, the one I needed to interrogate. The silver lining though was that the timer went away, so I didn't need to perform under pressure anymore. Thinking about taking them all on in a fight, Graug ended up wielding a poisoned weapon. This was yet another combat gimmick. Anytime I took damage from it, my health would go down to a sliver. Quickly changing my mind, I dodged, evaded, and fled for my life. Climbing up the nearby structure, I was able to stay away from the orcs. The catch though is that while they're still aggroed onto me, they'll chuck axes in my direction. Definitely don't want to get hit by those. Luckily, a little time out of sight and the Uruks ended up forgetting all about me. As they were wandering beneath the tower, confused at what had just happened, I decided to take a stab at Graug. Literally. Jumping down on his head, I was quickly humbled and reminded why it's important to scout your enemies first. Graug ended up being invulnerable to stealth attacks. Because of that, I had to readjust my approach. Having the high ground and an ample supply of elf shot, I was able to take out pretty much all of Braug's entourage. Thinking I could get some licks in on the big bad boss as well, he ended up being invulnerable to ranged attacks, of course. Either way, it didn't really matter. Braug the Twin was alone, and without his followers, he stood no chance. His attacks could be countered, the poison was easy enough to evade, and all I had to do was beat him down until he was ready to talk. Or rather, until he was weak enough. Peering into Braug's mind, he ended up being not only a captain, but also a bodyguard to one of the Warchiefs. This meant that I had a direct link to one of the 5 members in the Black Hand's inner circle. Revealing his identity, it ended up being Mog the Other Twin. That's literally his name too. Mog has a high power level, sitting at 13. In order to draw out the Warchiefs, I need to perform showdown missions within their strongholds. With enough of Mog's goons dead, he'll have no choice but to show his face. Mog only has a few weaknesses and a boatload of strengths. Combat finishers and ranged attacks work on him, great, but he becomes enraged when his bodyguard is attacked, he becomes enraged at the sight of Caragors, he's battle hardened, making him hard to kill, he has a flaming weapon, yet another combat gimmick, he can jump attack, meaning he'll lunge in and it'll be less predictable, and he's fearless, he'll never flee. Shouldn't be too difficult, right?
Ranger! Oh, well, now that's what I call teamwork, eh?
Go before I change my mind.
What about our deal?
Deal is over.
Very well then, I just thought that we... Right. Wait! Ranger! Watch this. Once the Warchief hears of my victory, he'll make me his personal bodyguard.
And how does this help me?
A backstabbing bodyguard? I'll take care of one of the Warchiefs for you. You do the other 4 on your own. Then we'll meet at the training camp, right? I'll make sure the Warchief is there. You're ready for him. What do you say?
Make sure you keep your head on your neck this time.
Yeah, I don't. Well, that's my plan. Yeah.
Ratbag's lucky he's cunning. The live Nemesis report goes off, and I can see Ratbag yet again advance in rank. He's one step away from becoming Warchief, which is great for him, and as he keeps saying, it's also apparently good for Talion. We'll see what becomes of it though. Because I've made it my active mission, I can see that the goal is to kill 4 of the 5 Warchiefs. I suppose that's the magic number for drawing out the Black Captain. It's certainly not going to be easy though. I need intel on each one. Then I need to go through their respective showdown mission, then finally I have to survive each fight. Before embarking on what feels like the impossible, I first wanted to meet up with Gollum again.
Well, where is he? Your friend is either a liar or a coward.
Maybe it was you threatening his life.
Let's go find your precious treasure.
Yeah, the little vermin is not here.
The eagle hunts rabbits from up high, and so shall we.
Following Smeagol's footprints, they took me across a forge tower, something I took the liberty in activating and through the rest of the nearby ruins. Only moments into the search, Talion had discovered where they led to.
Graug. I need at least 20 men to bring that beast down.
Oh, then we must find another way.
My meeting with one before appears to have been premature. Even the game suggests that I try and distract the beast instead of take it head on. Off in the distance, I can see some hanging bait. How it got there and what exactly it is, I have no clue. Either way, firing an arrow at it seems to do the trick as the Graug charges away from the cave. From here, I had 20 nail-biting seconds to make it into its lair, something that I had actually almost failed. Luckily, I made it inside without any problems and was free to continue my search for Gollum. Within its den, there were ghouls lurking about. However, they didn't seem overly bothered with me. It was almost as if they knew they shouldn't have been in here either. About halfway through the cave, I could hear the Graug's ear-piercing roar. Talion and the Wraith mentioned that it's probably out looking for its next fight. Either way, before long, I made it to the back of the Graug's lair and came across another search area. In the Wraith world, I could see Gollum's footprints going all over the place. However, all of his trails seemed to intersect at the top of a nearby ledge. Up there, I was able to find the next artifact.
Only you could accomplish such art, Celebrimbor.
Celebrimbor? Greatest smith of the Second Age. I'd heard the stories, but...
I remember my name now. I shaped the history of Middle-earth. I crafted the Rings of Power.
Fly, you fool.
Well, there you have it. The Wraith is Celebrimbor, the Lord of Eregion who was tricked and killed by Sauron, or rather, Anatar, the Lord of Gifts. The Elf Lord's reputation really does precede him, as even Talion knows of his talents, and Shadow of Mordor takes place thousands of years after his death. Either way, now is not really the time to recount his deeds. The cave is collapsing, the Graug is actively hunting Talion, and Celebrimbor did the thing. Fly, you fools. Again, I see what you're doing, Monolith Productions. Talion and Celebrimbor's escape involves using a new move called Shadow Strike. It takes up 2 slots of Elf Shot, but it allows me to teleport to my arrow's mark and strike them down. Fleeing with me is a whole army of ghouls. Luckily, a few of them are dumb enough to try and attack Talion, making them easy marks for Shadow Strike.
Good riddance.
I'm the one responsible for all of this. That's why Sauron wants me.
No. No. Bright Master is good. He looks after us.
Shut your insolent mouth.
Nasty Ranger. He knows nothing of the Bright Master.
I know of his legend. How Sauron deceived you into making the rings. He tortured both you and your king.
And the precious. The Master makes it too. Where is it?
I have no memory of any such thing.
Why would it even matter?
The Master must remember. Yes, he must. We dig up more treasures. Yes, yes, yes. And then he will take us to it.
Now, if you're really into the Tolkien lore, you might notice that there are some differences between what's canon to the universe and what was altered for the game. For the time being, it's not really that big of a deal. For the most part, everything does coincide with Tolkien's timeline and general narrative. Plus, at the end of the day, the game's not really canon anyways, so who cares? Either way, now comes the fun part, to kill a Warchief. On my way over to Mog's stronghold, I ended up running into a captain named Ronk the Smith. Not a big event or occurrence by any means, but again, just goes to show that you never know who's going to be roaming around Mordor. If I was smart, I would have interrogated him for more info on one of the other warchiefs, but that wasn't so easy to do. Luckily, a little ways away, I found a dead Uruk who had intel on him. This is essentially a freebie for valuable information on any mark. Picking a warchief at random, I discovered the identity of Mormog the Poet. While I need more intel on his strengths and weaknesses, I'll leave that for a later time.
These birds will feast on your guts! Did you see that? Could you get me down? I'm all right. That didn't hurt at all. I know what you're thinking, Ranger. This was not my fault. I go to tell the chief that I've killed his bodyguard. He turns around, got the exact same face as the dead maggot I just killed. Regicus killed. Twins. What are the odds of...
Just make sure you show up to take the place of the dead Warchief.
But the Warchief's not dead.
I'm going to go kill him!
Oh, good plan. I'll be right behind you. It works.
A training platform. Well, we'll see how the Warchief soldiers do in the face of a true foe.
Rattle a cage and bring out the beast.
In truth, Mog's appearance was handed to me on a platter. All I had to do was climb the nearby training platform and kill two of his berserker trainees. This was easy enough, as a sloppy stealth approach did the trick. A couple of arrows, a few ripped open chests, and the Warchief came knocking.
The pain of my twin shall echo within you.
Each boss usually says some weird one-liner before the fight begins. Most of the time it's not really threatening and almost makes you scratch your head. I didn't know the Uruks were that passionate. Taking advantage of Mog's weakness, I was able to lower his health by a quarter via ranged attacks. From there, I beat him up and performed various takedowns to get his health down even further. By now, his backup had arrived and I had to play the fight a bit safer, ensuring that I countered everyone and that I didn't leave myself vulnerable. Fortunately, Mog was only a few wet slaps away from death anyway, and before long, he was on to his last chance action. It's a quick time event and it caught me off guard, but luckily, the game was pretty forgiving with it. Beating Mog to the punch, literally, I was able to deliver the killing blow.
Ratbag is Warchief! Ranger, we did it!
I'll honor our arrangement.
Oh, don't you worry. Warchief Ratbag will make sure nobody gets in the way of your dirty schemes. But Ratbag can't speak for the other Warchiefs.
I wouldn't worry about them.
Could I borrow your... I need a sharper blade.
Well, the live Nemesis report shows Ratbag ascending to Warchief. Ideally, from there, he'll be able to serve his purpose, whatever that may be, and I won't have to kill him. But again, can you ever really trust an orc? That remains to be seen. From the stronghold, I teleported to a safer location. Having an abundance of abilities stockpiled up, I decided to finally throw in some points and attributes to some of the upgrades. Like for example, I can now throw daggers. These are a great way to inflict minor amounts of damage, but also to keep my enemies at bay. I also gave myself the ability to drain an orc life force while in stealth mode. This would definitely come in handy down the line. Then from there, I looked into runes for my weapons. Purchasing extra slots via Mirian, I now had room for 2 runes on my dagger, sword, and bow. For the sword, I made it so I had a 50% chance to receive 50% less damage per melee strike, as well as gave myself a 20% chance for critical hits to light my enemy ablaze. For the bow, I only had 2 runes anyway, so my elf shot now deals 25% more damage per headshot, and the duration of time for slowing down time was increased by 50%. Then finally, for the dagger, I already had a pre-existing rune on there. The morale of Uruks drops significantly when they see a captain die. As for the second slot, I made it so ground executions and stealth kills deal extra damage to warchiefs and captains, something that will also be incredibly helpful for what's to come. Close by the Forge Tower, I found another dead Uruk that had intel on him. Using it, I was able to reveal the identity of another warchief, Nazkuga the Handsome. Now, I had successfully killed 1 warchief and had leads for 2 others. Talion and Celebrimbor have certainly put in a lot of work around Mordor, but really, the adventure is only getting started. With a clear task ahead, I made it my goal to learn as much as I possibly could about the remaining warchiefs. Finding a worm, I was able to gather intel on the 4th one, Guro the Brave. Each warchief had a different prerequisite for their fight. For example, Guro would only get drawn out if 5 of his supporters were made to squeal. Meanwhile, my next target, Mormog the Poet, would only make an appearance if 5 archers ended up dead. The nice part about targeting Mormog is that he didn't have any bodyguards. I'd soon learn it the hard way, as the game sort of held my hand with Mog, but if you don't get rid of a warchief's bodyguard, they'll be right by their side. Essentially, it turns into a brawl against 2 to 3 named and powerful NPCs as opposed to just 1. Either way, arriving at Mormog's stronghold, Celebrimbor keeps it plain and simple. Take out the archers and the big boss will come running. I've always found the archers to be the easiest enemies to get to. They're always high up and secluded. It's rare to have other NPCs in the game who actively watch over them. So, through silent takedowns and long shots with my bow, I was able to slay all 5 Uruks and watched on as Mormog made his appearance. Gaining access to the high ground and scanning the stronghold, I could see that even though the poet didn't have any bodyguards, there were still a couple of captains in the vicinity. If I wasn't careful with the upcoming fight, I'd get a lot more than I bargained for. Fortunately for me, Mormog's patrol path took him through a relatively secluded area of the stronghold. After taking out a few of the lackeys in the area, I was ready to initiate the fight. Mormog's weaknesses made it so he could be damaged by explosions as well as combat finishers. For the time being, only one of those would help in this fight. Meanwhile, he had quite a few strengths, such as invulnerability to ranged, rendering my counters ineffective, and the ability to stop me from vaulting over his head. Fortunately, my very first stealth attack did a number on his health, and without any backup, he was by far the easiest warchief to kill. If only the next 2 were as easy as Mormog. Believe me when I say they put up a much better fight. Before leaving the stronghold, I got a hold of another worm and revealed the identity of Guro's bodyguard. It was an Uruk by the name of Tumug the Breaker. Definitely something to keep in mind for the next part of this mission. Wanting to stay in order of warchiefs based on discovery, just because, I made my next mark Nazkuga the Handsome. In order to better get to Nazkuga though, I first had to deal with his bodyguard, Malmug the Unkillable. Both the captain and his warchief would be at Durthang. Well, unsurprisingly, Durthang was the host to a whole plethora of captains. Just trying to step foot on site was a task in of itself. Failure to be sneaky resulted in alarms raised, angry captains, and an army of Uruks on my tail. Fortunately, I was able to use this time to really test the limits. How far would the orcs follow me, at what distance would their suspicions start to lower, and how many could I take on at once? I was able to use one of the captains to learn more about the 5th warchief, Kothug Raid Leader. Now I had my pick of the litter. One lucky warchief gets to stay alive while everyone else around him dies. The next captain I had a fight with, Hork the Shadow, taught me a very valuable lesson. In fact, it'd be my saving grace against Nazkuga. When possible, if an Uruk is vulnerable against range attacks, do not hesitate to cheese the fight with Elf Shot. As tempting as it is to go in there, sword blazing, dashing around the battlefield, countering attacks, and letting off Wraith abilities, it's a lot harder than it looks. With defenders, hunters, archers, and berserkers now scattered into every orc scuffle, it just becomes too much to take on at once, at least for me. There are all these different abilities and mechanics to worry about, and it just makes the risk of dying that much higher. That's why, when possible, it's never a bad idea to stick to the shadows and start popping some heads. Either way, when that whole messy entrance was dealt with, I finally went back to being incognito and got eyes on Malmug. He was busy with intimidating the local orcs. He wanted more followers, most likely to resolve his power struggles and ascend to Warchief. If I was smart, I would have read Malmug's weaknesses. One successful stealth takedown and he would have been a goner. Instead, I chose to stick to the high ground, stalk him through Durthang, and struck at him when the moment was right. Malmug ended up completing his goal of finding new followers, but it would end up being in vain. Spam attacking the bodyguard, I was able to deplete his health pretty quickly. Even though others came to his aid, it was already too late. I delivered the killing blow, scratched another captain off the list, and readied myself for Nazgûl. This was probably the most challenging Warchief for me. For starters, Nazgûl was the boss who would only come out if he had heard one of his followers scream. At first, I wasn't really sure what that meant. The game directed me to grab and hold him, so making my way across Durthang, taking out as many orcs as possible, I set myself up for the opportunity. Partially isolating the follower, I launched my attack. It turned out that I would need to literally grab and hold this Uruk for 20 seconds. I didn't need to drain, interrogate, shank, or brutally execute him. I just had to latch on. So, trying again, I had to go invisible, lose all of my orc pursuers, and restart the encounter. This time, I did a much better job at getting the follower alone. I cleared a path for him to wander across the bridge and killed members of his entourage in order to capture his attention. When ready, I set myself up for the grab and lunged in. 20 seconds had gone by. That was enough time to stir up Nazgûl the Handsome. From here, I tried a couple of different approaches for taking him down. I had to be pretty careful as there were a few captains in the area. Since Nazgûl was vulnerable to ranged attacks, I spent a good portion of the beginning just taking pot shots at him. I'd dance around the rooftops, collect elf shot, and hone in on his skull. Honestly, I should have just stuck with this method the whole time. For some reason, I got it in my head that I'd be more effective with boots on the ground. So, dropping down for the brawl, Nazgûl ended up being a very unique Uruk. He had a tower shield, which meant that he couldn't be attacked from the front. However, he also had the Vault Breaker strength, meaning I couldn't jump over his head. Then, with his spear, he was able to let off a series of powerful and unblockable attacks. After going back and forth for a bit, other Uruks arrived and I was forced to flee. Barely making it out alive, I returned to the rooftops and went back to my ranged approach. Luckily for me, it continued to work wonders. Nazgûl would follow me around Durthang, making my job a lot easier. Before long, I had laid into the Warchief enough to where one more headshot would do the trick. Taking my time and aiming properly, I let the arrow fly and crossed another name off my list. With Nazgûl, Mormog, and Mog dead, I just needed one more body to draw out the Black Captains. At this point, I could have flipped a coin, Kothug or Gura. Both had similar strengths and weaknesses. They both also had only one bodyguard. Looking back on it, maybe Kothug would have been the better choice as he had a lower power level. With that being said, I ended up choosing Gura. My decision mostly came down to order of identification, and the fact that I had also identified his bodyguard, Tumug. It is a bit ironic though. Gura would be the Warchief where I decided not to deal with their bodyguard and just see what happens. The questing zone brought me over to another stronghold, the internment camp. Here, personally speaking, the draw process wasn't nearly as difficult as Nazgûl. I had to terrorize 5 of Gura's supporters. Simply draining them of their life force would do the trick. Interestingly, the first orc I started with was how I learned I could cheese the process. Draining him for elf shot and then stealth killing him, another Uruk would spawn in not moments later. I guess this was Monolith's way of ensuring the player had access to an ample supply of supporters. After hitting 3 out of 5, I decided to spread my wings and leave the poor orc spawn alone. Admittedly, this was kind of regrettable, as pretty much every other orc was out in the open and had their back to a wall. I ended up having a bit of trouble securing that 5th follower. The Uruks ended up hot on my tail, the captains were on high alert, and the camp's alarms got raised. Fortunately, most of the action took place in one half of the internment camp, as the others seemed rather oblivious to what was actually going on. Finding my 5th mark and scaring him good, Goroth finally ended up arriving on the scene. Of course, he brought his bodyguard, Tumug the Breaker. Furthermore, another captain by the name of Thakrak the Surgeon was lingering nearby, practically as if Goroth had 2 bodyguards. Furthermore, Goroth had stationed himself directly in the center of the camp. This meant that it'd be even trickier to take him down without the other Uruks joining in on the tussle. It took a little bit of patience and a lot of waiting, but before long I was able to isolate the Warchief. You see, Tumug the Breaker had a fear of Morgai flies, those bee-like hives that you may have seen hanging around Udun. Taking the chance, I shot down the one that was right over his head and watched the chaos unfold. All of the nearby orcs scattered except for Goroth. Thakrak was still somewhat close by, but either way, this was my best chance. Dropping down and initiating the fight, I was able to get his health down to about 1/3 before backup arrived. At that point, I knew that no matter what happened, I just had to stay focused on Goroth. Well, luckily for me, even when the other Uruks had surrounded us, I was able to perform a 3rd and final takedown on the Warchief. This prompted his last chance action, a simple quick time event on my part. From there, I was able to behead the final target for my mission. With the live Nemesis report scratching off Goroth the Brave, that opened the pathway for the next quest, the Dark Monument. Killing almost all the Warchiefs was certainly not an easy endeavor. However, it was incredibly rewarding. I like how every boss had a different showdown mission that helped to keep things fresh and exciting. Furthermore, with enemies like Neskuga, I really enjoyed having to think on my feet and adapting to their fight style. I know it's going to sound weird, but sometimes it almost feels like Elfshot can be a lesser form of combat, like it's too easy to take out my opponents. However, I'm glad the game incorporated it to where it's pretty much mandatory for some fights.
You saw what these monsters are capable of. It is madness to stay here.
Yes, but circumstances have changed. Don't you see we have him on our side now?
Why would he want to help us? Weeks ago, he was our enemy.
Italian, ready to pick that fight?
I'd best take these bandages to the others.
The orcs are building a monument to honor Sauron. We have enough blasting powder to destroy it.
Fine. I'll take it and I'll finish this.
Not without me, you won't.
Thought your only concern was saving your wife.
So did I. Come on, let's go before I change my mind. Forgive Erin's words. Her heart is with our people. The slaves you helped us free know where the Dark Lord's monument is most vulnerable. We will strike there.
It's funny, from that cutscene, it's almost like the game wants me to think less of Hirgon, almost as if he's using Talion to achieve his own goals. However, I guess you could say that that's what everyone else in the game has already been doing. Gollum wants the One Ring, Ratbag wanted to be Warchief, and after rescuing his wife, Hirgon wants to make a statement. Of course, Talion and Celebrimbor gain from these personal goals too, as they get closer to answers as well as the Black Captains. From the Outcast camp, Hirgon's first goal is to secure some grog. This extremely flammable drink will work great for setting off the blasting powder. I actually really enjoyed the gameplay for this mission. For the first portion, Hirgon takes me to various questing areas. In those areas, he asks me to eliminate all of the nearby Uruks. Using all of the skills, mechanics, and abilities that I've learned thus far, I get the freedom to take them out in whatever manner I choose. Personally, as of this moment, I find stealth takedowns and strategic approaches to be the most satisfying ones. Very soon, that would end up changing, but for now, it's what I went with. After the grog cart was accessible, Hirgon called in his outcasts and they took control of it. From there, their goal was to push it halfway across Udun, while mine and Hirgon's was to clear a path. As the trek continued, I got to experience the best of both worlds. When there weren't Uruks around, or rather alive ones, ghouls would spawn in and launch their attack. Again, not difficult fights per se, but the name of the game here was speed. The longer the battle took, the more damage I'd end up taking. Hirgon was surprisingly capable here. He barely took any damage, and I wondered if he knew something that I didn't. Either way, after the tussle with the ghouls, I was led to another orc camp. Working my magic again, I pretty much used the same approach that I did in the last area. I stuck to the high ground, popped some heads, and slit some throats. Once the 8 orcs were dead, Hirgon led me through the stronghold of Durthang. Too many stressful memories in here. However, this time around, it was actually pretty neat. The ghouls had launched an attack of their own on the stronghold. So, while it was orcs versus nightcrawlers, the outcasts had gone unnoticed and were able to push the cart underneath the bridge. As for Hirgon and I, we had no problems at all traversing through Durthang. Only on the other side of the stronghold did we have to deal with some attacking ghouls. While I deem them less complicated than orcs, I still think I'd rather take on a band of Uruks. In fact, further down the line, at another orc outpost, all that remained were corpses. The ghouls had gotten the jump on them yet again. In order to better deal with them, I finally used a mechanic that I've been putting off. Shadow of Mordor allows for the player to mount, tame, and ride Caragors. By approaching them from the high ground and descending on them, Talion's presented with a pretty easy quick-time sequence. If successful, Celebrimbor can brand the beast and turn it into an ally. Now, the Caragor can be ridden, it can act as an ally in battle, and it can also be drained for more elf shot. Honestly, it's a feature that I should have taken advantage of more, but rest assured, from here on out, it's officially on my radar. As Hirgon brings me to the final Uruk outpost, it ends up holding the most orcs out of any encampment. I need to take out 17 enemies, but honestly, that just made it more fun. I could do these types of missions all day. It was a low-stress, creative, and fun environment. Up until this point, it was also my favorite quest thus far. Fun fact, I had never made it this far into the game. Usually by Warchief number 3, I'd be done. I distinctly remember Mormog the Poet, but I don't recall Nazkuga, Gura, or Kothug. In a way, it's both a blessing and a misfortune that I never made it to this point. It sucks because I never got to experience the real meat and potatoes of this game, and believe me, this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much story that I missed out on, and the features plus mechanics are incredibly unique. On the other hand, I get to experience this part of the game for the first time with you all, and I'm having a blast. I legitimately couldn't put the controller down. Usually there comes a point where I want to take a break or move on to other parts of the creation process. But for this game, I just wanted to keep going. It brought me back to when I was a kid and how all I wanted to do was play the games that I loved.
Everyone, to the monument!
This is section 2 of the mission, or maybe 3 depending on how you viewed it. From here, I'm fighting alongside the outcasts. The goal is to ensure the cart full of explosives and grog reaches the construction site. The Uruks are on full alert, and it honestly feels like a proper war. For the first bit, the orcs come at me one at a time. They're pretty easy to hold at bay, plus my new allies are doing a great job at distracting them. However, the closer the cart gets to the monument, the harder the mission becomes. More and more orcs come out of the woodworks, and the outcasts are slowly dying off. Eventually, archers start to arrive on scene, and they take aim for the cart. The cart has its own little health bar, and as soon as it runs out, that's game over. As phase 2 of this section kicks off, I now have to kill the archers, push the flaming cart, and fend off any foot soldiers. Really, the marksmen were my biggest problems here. Their sole purpose was to take aim at the carriage. The other Uruks were nuisances, but they'd either come after Talion or get distracted by the outcasts. Luckily, after the second wave of archers went down, I had a free drive for the end zone. Axes flew overhead, orcs screamed and yelled, and the fires were raging, but it wasn't enough to stop Talion.
You have sealed their doom.
My people believe they have just claimed their freedom.
Is that what you told them?
Men need hope. I just gave them what they asked for.
Then your men need their leader.
Unfortunately, it's true. Before, the outcasts were nothing more than slaves and playthings to the army of Mordor. They were completely discounted. But now, all eyes are on them, as they just desecrated a statue to the master of the orcs, Sauron. This is something that we see the repercussions for in the next quest. Speaking of which, the first thing that caught my eye is the icon on the map. If you look at it, it appears to be the Eye of Sauron. Furthermore, reading into it, the time has finally come. With the dead Warchiefs and the destruction of Gorthar, one of Sauron's aliases, I've captured the attention of the Black Captains. It's time to confront those responsible for the deaths of Yorith and Dirhael.
Hold, brother. He wants the Grave Walker.
The Black Hand has come.
One of his minions. He was sent here to hunt us down. Let me gather my men.
The servants of Sauron are foes beyond any of you. Get your people out of Mordor tonight, or you'll all be dead by dawn.
There is a hidden tunnel to the Black Gate. Aaron, it's time. Goodbye, my friend.
So the local war chiefs did nothing to prevent this sacrilege?
They all perished in battle, my lord. All except me. Warchief Ratbag.
Fortunately, you are still alive. Now, bring me the head of this Grave Walker.
Claim the head yourself.
The Ranger from the Black Gate. Where was your bravery when we bled your wife and gutted your son? Kill him!
Here comes the battle with one of the Black Captains, nicknamed the Hammer. Honestly, the Hammer was the most insufferable one that night, so I'm glad that Talion gets to start with him first. Also, with the start of this mission, Talion officially bids farewell to Hirgon, Eren, and the Outcasts. They'll have fled Udun, this region of Mordor, and for this game, that's the last we see of them. In fact, that's the last we see of Gollum and Ratbag as well. As the saying goes, out with the old and in with the new. Now, let's recenter to this fight. At first, the battle with the Hammer seemed pretty difficult. On my first try, I was bouncing all over the battlefield, spreading out my attention and wasting my health. The showdown with the boss is fairly simple. There's a small area that I can stick to. That area contains the Hammer and over half a dozen Uruks. Obviously, the Black Captain is the center of attention here. The orcs are there to get in the way and drain my resources. As for the Hammer, while I can't hone in on his weaknesses and strengths, I can get a feel for what they are. For example, he can't be vaulted over, he has some moves that cannot be blocked, and he's invulnerable to takedowns. However, he can be damaged by arrows, and frankly, the best method for dealing with him is by getting up in his face. After about a third or so of his health bar gets knocked down, he performs this ground pound move that wipes out all of the nearby Uruks. This sets up for the next phase of the fight, which introduces a fresh batch of orcs. However, the Hammer's moveset and aggression stays the same. Honestly, I think I put up a pretty good fight during my first attempt. I didn't really have much of a strategy. I went in blind and got a feel for the pace of battle. After performing 3 last chance actions, the game finally let me die. Luckily, there were no repercussions for this, and hopefully I'll never have to explain what those would entail. Retrying the mission, this time the fight went a lot smoother. Basically, I just ignored the orcs and focused on the Hammer. During our first match, I'd just spam my melee attacks until he hit me with one of his heavy ones. However, For the rematch, I'd pace my hits and really try to watch out for combo breaking attacks. For the most part, that was 90% of the battle. The other 10% was countering the Uruks and taking pot shots at the hammer. With a maximum focus, I could slow down time long enough to let off a series of arrows. It would end up making a difference, and arguably, the elf shot was what turned the tides of war. Before long, the Black Captain had a sliver of health left, and I was letting off one of the most brutal combos in the game.
You may deal the death blow and prove your worth, pig filth.
How does your vengeance taste, Talion? Is not the darkness sweet?
You acted too hastily. There's much we could have learned.
He slaughtered my entire family before my very eyes. What would you have done?
Do you speak with the living? Or only with the dead?
Who are you?
My name is Lothariel, from the Sea of Nurnen. My mother said you would be here. And here you are.
Well, Lothariel from the Sea of Nurnen. You should have stayed where you were. There's nothing here but death.
Lady Marwyn, Queen of the Shore, wishes an audience with you. She has seen visions of your misfortune.
A queen who sees visions.
Visions of the return of the great Celebrimbor. She wishes to make him an offering.
And what is this offering?
That is all I know. I must gather provisions. The return to Nurnen is long and treacherous. My camp is close by. It will be my honor to escort you.
We have defeated the Hammer of Sauron, but the Black Hand and the Tower remain.
And their master.
This marks a very interesting portion of the game. In fact, you could argue it's roughly the halfway point for the journey, or just under. As I've recently learned, there are 3 Black Captains and they each have different titles. There's the Hammer, which I've just defeated. Then there's the Tower, the one who took Yorith hostage and told Talion to put his sword down. Then finally, there's the Hand, the one who actually performed the blood sacrifice. He almost seems to be the leader of the trio and arguably the most mysterious. Then, as I mentioned, during the boss fight, all of my connections in Udun have been lost. Gollum is gone, Hirgon escaped, and as I learned from the Nemesis report, Ratbag was killed by the Hammer. I'll give him credit, I really thought he was going to betray Talion and Celebrimbor. Maybe he would have if he had lived long enough, but now we'll never know. 4 out of 5 of the Warchiefs are dead, and more than a few captain roles are vacant. Where does the game go from here? It feels like irreparable damage was done to Udun. Well, that's because it has been, but like I said earlier, when one door closes, another one opens. Mordor is a large realm, and there's still many other regions that can be explored.
The smell of fresh meat always attracts the scavengers.
And they tend to travel in packs. We should leave now.
Queen will be pleased to see you. We are here. Lady Marwen, Queen of the Shore.
The fallen ranger from the Black Gate. Come closer.
Your daughter claims you have something for me.
Not for you, Talion. The hour grows late. Very soon, the Dark Lord and his army will march all over Mordor, but a great power can be awakened to prevent it.
Is that why I'm here?
Breach into Morgoth's scar. Take the elven craftwork from the ghouls and find the dwarf.
Stay strong, Mother. Come.
What is your mother's affliction?
No one knows. She worsened after her travels.
Is there not medicine?
There was, but our camp was overrun.
Welcome to Nirn. No, not the world of the other scrolls, but the southernmost region of Mordor. This is the second and final area of Shadow of Mordor. There are all new forge towers, quests, friends, foes, abilities, and strongholds. Honestly, the game changes a good bit here, and if you can believe it, I'd say for the better. I'll be getting into this specifics shortly, but for now, I think we can all admire just how lush and beautiful Nirn is. There's certainly a stark contrast between it and Udun. The wastes and barren landscapes of Udun made it feel all doom and gloom. On the other hand, the sea, the sunlight, the greenery, it almost feels like hope, like there are answers waiting for Talion and Celebrimbor. For the first part of this mission, I had to locate a ransacked supply car. There were dead Uruks all around it, and of course, the ghouls were the culprits. Following Marwen's advice, I'm supposed to take some elven craftwork from them and locate a dwarf. I'm sure it'll all make sense when it unfolds. The ghoul tracks lead me across the cliffs and platforms of Nirn's shoreline. Again, it's a visually stunning region. I constantly caught myself staring out into the horizon. Soon enough though, after enough time, I'd land at another cave entrance. Having an outstanding track record with these, I readied myself for all of the possibilities. This experience, however, was pretty unique. The cave seemed to be the ghoul's nest. There were night crawlers all over the place. One wrong move and I'd be dealing with an army of those vile creatures. Therefore, my objective was to reach the vision artifact without triggering the ghoul swarm. In truth, this wasn't that hard to do. Intimidating, yes, as it felt like I could be spotted at any moment. However, for the most part, by simply following the tracks and staying low, I was able to make it through undetected. As a side note, along the way, I found a relic that not only added Mirian to my inventory, but also some lore. These pieces are scattered around the game, and by finding their memory point, I can peer into their past. For example, this blood-stained buckler appeared to have belonged to a dwarf. It sounds as though two dwarves were out hunting when a Graug attacked. One of them was killed and the other vowed to get revenge. I wonder who this dwarf could have ended up being and if we'll ever run into him. At the end of the line, I entered some old hall. This was the room that held the heirloom. At one point in time, it very well could have belonged to the dwarves. However, it's now an overrun crypt.
Made by the Dark Lord himself. And still covered in my family's blood.
We are betrayed. Its power blazes like a beacon, and will bring ruin to all Middle-earth.
Gondor! What is that creature?
That is a ghoul matron. They're the big bosses of the ghouls. They have their own health bars, hit hard, and can command the lesser ghouls. They can also spit out venom and perform attacks that can't be blocked. They're certainly not the easiest of foes, and now I can welcome them to Shadow of Mordor's bestiary. Once the creature was killed, I was on to the next objective for this mission, escaping. I had 2 minutes to leave from the way I came in. Honestly, it wasn't even that tricky to do. The quote challenge was that all of the ghouls were now aggroed onto me, but really, it was easy enough to completely ignore them or shadow strike my way out. I managed to flee with more than enough time on the clock, so I suppose that extra minute and a quarter could have been used to complete the bonus objective.
Ranger, take cover!
Pity to end your military career inside the belly of a ghoul, eh? I'm Torvin, the Beast Hunter. And I bet 10 pints you just nabbed the treasure I was after.
Now, I am grateful for the assistance, but it does not grant you proprietary rights.
Keep it! I just found something a lot more valuable.
And what would that be?
My new hunting partner!
What you hunt does not interest me, Master Dwarf.
Even if it leads you to the chisel that belongs with that hammer. Every creature's got its lure. Yours just happens to be very old. Well, if the thrill of the hunt takes your fancy, my camp's not far.
Find the dwarf.
Well, that quest ended up being a 2-for-1. I recovered Celebrimbor's hammer and revealed more of his past. The Elf Lord mentions that he forged 3 rings of power in secret, 1 for water, 1 for fire, and 1 for air. Those are the only 3 that could not be influenced by Sauron. As it stands, in the canon universe, those rings are currently possessed by Gandalf, Galadriel, and Elrond. However, as for the 9 rings of men and the 7 for the dwarves, those were completely tainted. Then of course, I got to meet the dwarf, Torvin. I gotta say, I'm a little conflicted on Torvin's appearance. I think he looks pretty badass and hardy, but he's not necessarily the spitting image of a Middle-earth dwarf. He kinda looks like he belongs more in a Predator or Rambo movie. Honestly, I think it's the fact that he's clearly in great shape and his beard doesn't follow the status quo. The stereotypical Peter Jackson dwarf is unkempt, a little rough around the edges, and aesthetically, not always a super soldier. In any case, it doesn't really matter, does it? It's a new take on Durin's folk and stays true to the source material. Really, the big question is, was Torvin the dwarf that Hirgon and co stole the blasting powder from? Torvin did save Talion with a barrel of it, and as far as I can tell, he's the only dwarf in these parts. Just some food for thought.
Here.
Oh. Thank you.
I found the mithril hammer. Can your flames show me why my soul was denied death?
You are the victim of a blood sacrifice.
Can the curse be broken?
Destroy the Black Hand and his followers, and claim Mordor.
No man of Gondor will come to my aid.
don't need them. Your power begets followers, willing or otherwise.
An orc army.
How do I do this?
Your answers are in the fortress nearby, but what you seek may not be there for much longer.
This is officially where the gameplay levels up. I wish they had introduced this mechanic sooner, but I also understand why they didn't. From the Queen of the Shore's hideout, I have 1 minute and 30 seconds to make it to the marked orc camp. Not the hardest of tasks, but the crux was the final stretch. There were a whole bunch of Uruk patrols, and there was even a smaller second camp nearby. Arriving on site, the Wraith pulls out one of the most overpowered abilities right out from his pocket.
It is not them that we seek, but what they carry.
I will save them nonetheless.
Don't be blinded by your emotions.
The Queen told us our answers to building an orc army lie within this fortress.
If we brand those archers, we can build our army and save these men at the same time.
This is where the concept of branding gets introduced. I used that word before with the Caragors, but technically the game calls that dominating. Branding shares the same controls as draining. Now, any Uruk that's been drained for Elfshot also turns into a follower, or rather, they get brainwashed into becoming a follower. To me, this completely changes the game. The days of an isolated, purely hostile Mordor are at an end. By sneaking around the camp, I can brand as many Uruks as I want. Furthermore, this effect lasts indefinitely. Marwyn and Celebrimbor were not joking when they said that I could build an army. Anytime I want to take a camp, captain, outpost, or stronghold, I can turn it around from a solo ramble-like mission to an all-out war. For this tutorial, the game only wants me to brand the archers, but as you'll see, that's certainly good enough. Activating my sleeper agents and freeing a nearby Caragor, the grounds below me turned into a bloodbath. The archers relentlessly rained their bolts down on the foot soldiers, the Caragor ripped into the Uruks, and I was there to oversee everything. If anything, love it, hate it, it adds an extra element of gameplay to the game and keeps things fresh.
The Lady of the Shore send you to our aid.
The Queen warned us to wait until the end of the battle. Then the orcs spotted us.
I told you, the visions always come to pass.
Yes, but I told you not to.
Do you have something for me?
Queen Marwyn sent us to find this.
A little more of Celebrimbor's past gets revealed. While it isn't necessarily a tell-all, it does show that the Elf Lord did not die in Region. The Dark Lord had other plans for him. They were likely a lot more sinister and unforgiving than a swift death. From here, the Uruk backup arrives. 20 more soldiers storm the camp and the fighting continues. The archers do a decent job at lowering their numbers, but something you'll soon come to see is that the orcs get nerfed when they fight for Talion. I suppose it's only fair, but I'd say that the Uruks drop down a level or two when branded. Something to keep in mind for the future quests. Either way, when the cavalry has been defeated, the quest comes to an end and I'm free to explore more missions. Branding orcs and getting them to do my dirty work has quickly become my favorite mechanic. It helped me rethink how I view them. They went from nuisances that I'd wanted nothing to do with, over to tools and pawns that could accomplish my goals for me. Believe me when I say, the rest of Marwen's questline only continues to ramp up. It gets crazier and crazier with each new mission. In saying that though, Torvin's set of quests are able to go tit for tat, and they offer a completely different mechanic for the game.
Shouldn't see me. Shouldn't hear me. It's a clean kill. And none of it is going to go to waste. What's your name, Ranger?
Talion.
What warrior? A lieutenant?
No, actually, it was a captain.
Oh, my mistake. We have a captain in our midst. Well, better look sharp, eh? Captain's coming. Better sharpen the swords, eh? And make sure our boots are nice and shiny. Oh, so tell me, Captain, have you ever hunted a Graug?
That Graug has what you promised me.
Aye. Not just any Graug. The largest one I ever came across. We must prepare.
I should do just fine. I've been trained very well.
My dog, Silver, was trained very well. That was before she got eaten by a warg. The hunt is not about rules, my captain. We're not going to line up and have someone play with our lives. It's about instinct, and it's about guts. Which, as you can see, I know a thing or two about. You want basics on the hunt? Follow me. The hunt is its own beast, one you must learn to tame. First lesson of Caragor hunting, do not die.
What do we need them for?
We ride them. A worthy mount for a dangerous hunt. Now, these beasts will not be impressed by your rank. All flesh tastes the same to them. Once you go on the hunt, Captain, you'll come out a changed man. Hopefully for the better, but you never know.
Torvin's shtick is all about the beasts of Mordor. His first quest with Talion surrounds the nature of Caragors. Obviously, up until this point, I've had my fair share of run-ins with those monsters. I know they don't answer to the Uruks, but they also don't like humans, elves, or dwarves either. I know how to kill them, and I kind of know how to ride them. However, Torvin takes his lesson to the next level. Honing in on an aggressive Caragor, Torvin introduces me to a new ability. I can now counter a Caragor's leap attack. This temporarily stuns the beast, allowing for an easier mount or an easier kill. Honestly, it feels like this section of Shadow of Mordor is where Talion goes from a shadowy stalker to an all-out warlord. From here, Torvin finds his own mount and together, we ride for the nearest Uruk patrol. On the back of a mount, the Uruks go from battle-hardened warriors to nothing more than ragdolls. They get knocked over with a simple swing from my sword, and from there, the Caragor can feast on their bodies. This replenishes its health, and if I'm strategic enough, I could keep my beast alive for a good long time. For the next little bit of this quest, Talion and Torvin ride through the fields of Nirn. We come across more orc packs and hunt them down. At the top of the screen, the game keeps score for who has the most kills. It's a bonus objective to kill more enemies than Torvin, and call it competitiveness or greed, but I really didn't want to lose. The final patrol happened to hold the highest number of Uruks. At first, seeing all of their markers turn red seemed pretty intimidating. I think alone, this would have been a somewhat tough battle, especially if there were spears flying all over the place. However, with Torvin there to take some of the heat off of me, it ended up going rather smoothly. Plus, I could fire off some elf shot while mounted. This helped to kill any straggler Uruk that wanted to get reinforcements. After separating from Torvin for mere moments, I returned to see him gone. In some of the nearby fields, I spotted some tracks as well as his wounded Caragor. Just around the nearby bend, I could see that some orcs had downed Torvin and closed in for the kill. I guess even master hunters need help sometimes, right? Luckily, there were only 2 orcs standing, and with the combined force of my Caragor, they never stood a chance.
What does riding Caragors have to do with killing Graugs?
All these questions, Captain. Not you were supposed to follow orders.
You are testing my patience, Torvin.
Pay attention. Learn to respect the beast. You're gonna need size and strength to fight the mighty Graug. Remember, on the hunt, respect is earned. And who knows? He'll even call you sir, eh?
Torvin's missions are certainly fun, but as of right now, they feel like they're more so there to explore features of the game as opposed to the story and lore. In saying that though, there's certainly nothing wrong with it. To me, the whole Caragor riding session feels like it should have been introduced earlier. Perhaps right before I started scratching off the Warchiefs, or maybe even during Ratbag's first quest with Goroth, as the whole Caragor mechanic seemed pretty relevant then. That's just my opinion though. I know that Torvin's promised me a grand prize from Celebrimbor's past, but who knows what will actually come of it or what I'll have to do to acquire it. Plus, the fact that it comes from a Graug, that sounds even stranger.
Returned. You are not done yet.
How did you know where to find this?
He has shown me.
You haven't told me what you want in return.
Only that you learn what you are truly capable of. Find an orc leader, make him a war chief, and all his soldiers will be yours.
But where am I to lead this army of mine?
Bring them to me, and I will show you.
Marwan said to bring her an army.
We shall not build an army. We shall command one.
We'll need to find an Uruk captain to dominate and make our own.
There is a slaver near here named Grublik. We will make him serve our cause.
So this is where branding goes to a whole other level, which I didn't even think was possible. Before, I was brainwashing archers and mere foot soldiers. This was purely in an attempt to wipe out Uruk camps. But now, the goal is to essentially infect an entire outpost and make them fight for Talion. What's more, it doesn't stop there, that's only the beginning. Arriving on scene, I identified my newest ally, Grublik the Flogger. Technically, my goal wasn't to turn every orc at this encampment. I just had to get my hands on Grublik, and from there, he'd work his magic. So for now, all the nearby orcs were just collateral. I did try my best to turn a few though and get them on my side. It worked with a handful of them, but after a couple of brands, the jig was up. The orcs had laid eyes on me, and the only thing that mattered now was Grublik. Killing off his allies and focusing on him, the objective was simple, bring his health down. Grublik wasn't the best fighter, but that was alright. I didn't need him for his combat skills, I needed him for his influence. Once Grublik was in a weakened state, I grabbed, branded, and dominated him. From there, I was able to peer into his mind. Getting brought over to the Nemesis chart, a new mechanic was introduced. Using my brainwashed captain, I could officially create my own power struggles within Mordor. Talion's ultimate goal for Grublik was to become Warchief. This was going to be done by killing Tars the Knife, one of the current Warchiefs. The first step to this insane plan was to make Grublik a bodyguard for Tars. In order for that to happen, Grublik had to build more of a following. So, shadowing the captain around Nirn, I watched on as he created more power struggles. Stealthily, I helped to ensure that those little matches would go his way. There were 3 groups of Uruks that Grublik approached and challenged. Each group had about 4 or so defiant orcs. So, my job was to take them out with elf shot and ensure the safety of Grublik's clan. Furthermore, something pretty interesting happened with the leftover Uruks. Due to Grublik's newfound influence and power, they too would get branded and brainwashed. It appears that the closer I get to the top of the food chain, the easier it is to control the masses. Instead of starting at the bottom and branding each individual orc, I can shoot straight for the top and get a bigger army much faster. Once Grublik had cemented his role as a quote, trusted and powerful leader, he was promoted to Tarz's bodyguard. From here, Talion is brought over to Tarz's stronghold, and it's time to initiate the final part of the plan. Grublik is already inside the stronghold's walls. He and Tarz's other bodyguard are by the Warchief's side. There are also a few of Grublik's branded soldiers in there too. My current goal was to reach the vantage point without raising the alarm. Along the way, I did my best to brand as many archers and foot soldiers as possible. For the ones I missed or couldn't get to, a well-placed arrow in their skulls would do the trick. I just wanted to ensure that Tarz had as little backup as possible. No help, no escape. As soon as Grublik and his soldiers were in place, Celebrimbor gave me the word to strike. However, not feeling satisfied enough, I went around the designated battlefield and branded as many of Tarz's warriors as I could. Archers, defenders, hunters, berserkers, Uruks big and small, no one was safe. When ready, I activated Grublik, and all at once, the orcs had turned on Tarz. Admittedly, I mistook the Warchief's other bodyguard for Tarz, laying into Barfo the Chunky via elf shot, shadow striking over, and repeatedly pulling off combos. I killed him in no time. However, that's when I learned that he wasn't Tarz, and then I had to pull out all the stops all over again. Fortunately, by the time I was on to the actual Warchief, it was pretty much just all of my Uruks in the vicinity. Tarz had no help and was practically defenseless. A couple of combos here, some takedowns there. Before long, Tarz was officially out of the picture, and Grublik had been promoted to Warchief.
I fight for the Dark Lord, and you shall fight for me! This is my dominion! I am the strongest Warchief in all of Mordor! I shall lead my army over a field of broken skulls! Come stand behind me, or let my blade meet your neck!
Queen Marwen's plan has given us great strength.
Strength should not be squandered, but wielded. The Queen will show us how.
Marwen's strategy yields great results. An army of our own to face darkness head-on.
A mirror looking upon itself, ready to be cracked.
We should return to Marwen. She will have more for us.
Together we can be invincible. The Dark Lords are still weak.
Our army can destroy you!
Mother!
Break the staff.
I am now that I can finally see you, my child.
Your mother. He's been under the spell of a very powerful wizard.
Talion, I am sorry. Saruman brought you here against my will. I went to him for help. I ended up being a prisoner within my own body.
What have you seen in your visions?
I have seen Sauron's servants. The tower. And the Black Hand. They bring much suffering. If you wish to know where they are across the Sea of Nurnen.
Their forces. How strong?
Strong enough to defeat us all.
Then we truly will need an army.
Illness still plagues you. Rest, Mother. I will make preparations for our journey out of Mordor.
Saruman is one of the Istari. With the power of the ring, he could have built a great army to challenge the Dark Lord.
And that's what we must do. The one garrison does not an army make.
Yes. We must dominate more war chiefs for a true army.
So there are a few things to unpack there. Number one, with Grublik as Warchief, that means that Talion and Celebrimbor have an Uruk on the inside. 1/5 of the Orcish armies of Nirn belong to them, which leads me into point number 2. You probably saw it coming, but what's the next step up from simply eliminating all of the Warchiefs? Branding them. My new objective for drawing out the remaining Black Captains is to brand all of the 5 Warchiefs. Not just 4 like it was in Udun, but all 5. What exactly that'll entail remains to be seen. Then, point number 3, what happened to Lady Marwen was pretty much a mirror of what happened with King Theoden in The Lord of the Rings. Saruman, the White Wizard, brainwashed and possessed her. That's how she knew about Celebrimbor, where to find certain heirlooms, and how to brand the orcs. However, after severing the connection between Marwen and Saruman, i.e. breaking the magical staff, she was returned to her former self. In truth, I'm fonder of this reference to The Lord of the Rings than, say, the Fly You Fool and Baggins's. It actually felt relevant to the story, and it's a pretty interesting in-universe mechanic to explore. For those who know the lore, I would have preferred to have seen or heard from the Blue Wizards instead. While they're a little more east of Mordor, they are in Eagles right away, and since we barely have any content regarding them, I think it could have made for an interesting encounter. Although, their alignments and morals are seemingly up in the air, so who knows how that would have went down and what would have actually happened.
Hope you're not put off by my wee scars.
No, not at all. I actually have a few of my own.
Oh, I'll bet. What type of battle scars did you get from the Black Gate, eh? Splinters? Oh, or did you scar your voice telling your soldiers to head into battle?
Tread lightly. My scars run very deep.
Huh. The mighty Graug. He gave me these. And he also took my hunting partner.
So, what now?
Well, another lesson for you, my captain. Maybe you'll even come out of this one unscarred.
So, what backward lesson do you have planned this time, eh? Shooting Crebain to prepare us for the mighty Graug?
You want to hunt Graug? And so you shall. But not just any Graug. This is a rare one. It's territorial. Strong enough to claim land as its own. And you and me, we're trespassing. Tell me, Captain, you ever slay a Graug before?
Today will be the first of many.
Now you're talking like a hunter. I've got a feeling in my gut you may survive this, Captain.
Well, since that's the largest part of you, I like those odds.
From here, Torvin gives me his second Beastmaster lesson. The first one was regarding Caragors, and of course, this next one is all about Graugs, certainly a step up. His advice is actually pretty helpful. Apparently, a Graug's weakness is its heal. While the monster is distracted, likely by Caragors or Uruks, I can sneak up behind it and, quote, bleed its heal. Sounds easy enough, but really it's easier said than done, at least for me. I had to go through a few attempts of sneaking up to it. For whatever reason, I really struggled with getting close to the Graug while remaining undetected. Definitely a skill issue, but every time I got close, it would turn away from the Uruks and spot me right away. Well, as it would turn out, the trick is to let the Graug have its way with the enemies first. Then, when everything around it is dead and it starts to feast on the corpses, I can quietly sneak behind it and shank its heels. After that, the next step is to wait for Caragors. According to Torvin, the orc corpses will attract the beasts. As soon as they arrive on scene, I'm to mount one and gain the advantage of speed. This will allow me to easily evade a Graug's deadly ground pound attack. From here, Torvin calls me over to him, and together we initiate the next step of his genius plan. As the Graug is now focused on the dwarf, I'm to get in as many headshots on the creature as possible. This lowers its health to the point where Torvin can finish the job.
What's step 4?
There is no step 4. It should be dead. You must have done it wrong.
I'm following your orders.
Well, that's your problem. Think for yourself.
Well, you probably knew it was coming, but step 4 is dominating the Graug, aka mounting it. While it's chained and downed, Talion can hop on its back and go through a series of old school God of War QuickTime events. During this time, Talion will slowly make his way up the Graug's back. The monster is attempting to grab Talion and throw him back down. After a few successful timed events, he makes it to the Graug's head and brands the beast. It was probably already common knowledge, but Graugs are pretty overpowered. They're tanky, strong, and have a massive hit area. One swipe with its hands will take out an entire Uruk hunting party. Similar to the Caragors, when its health gets low, I can make it grab and eat an orc. This obviously kills the orc on the spot, but it also raises the Graug's health back up. When the Uruk patrol was all taken care of, my final objective was to kill the Graug. To be honest, I'm not sure why the game wanted me to execute it, as I'd never been prompted to do the same with the other branded creatures. Maybe there's more to mounting and dominating a Graug than meets the eye. Or maybe the game is preparing me for what's to come.
I say, it's a wee bit unusual to ride a Graug.
Anything like a little improvising, eh?
All right, Captain. That's it. You showed instinct, gumption, respect. Training's over. Got guts. Let's go spill some, eh?
The darkness of Mordor doesn't seem to touch that dwarf.
The 7 rings of power did not turn the dwarf kings to wraiths, as the 9 rings did to man. They are as stubborn as stone and cannot be dominated by evil. That is why Sauron has sworn to destroy them.
Before going further, I think I've built an indestructible version of Celebrimbor. Using Mirian, I purchased another rune slot for both my bow and sword. The sword's upgrade is a little dismissible, however I think it's worth it to draw attention to the bow. Thanks to Barfo the Chunky, I now have the ability to regain 34% focus for stealth kills with the bow. Forget sneaking around towers and hiding in bushes. If I tame a Caragor and run onto the scene, I can take out a whole patrol of orcs before they even knew it hit them. Then, by draining the Caragor, I get my arrows back and the cycle continues. In theory, it sounds like a sound plan, but we'll see how it is in practice. Well, there are certainly a lot of interesting yet dangerous tasks lined up for Talion and Celebrimbor. Hunting a white Graug with Torvin, and branding 4 more Warchiefs for Talion's army. There are still 2 black captains that remain as well, the Tower and the Hand. The Hammer was not easy to draw out, so who knows what it'll take to get the other 2 to come to Nirn. From here, there are several missions to embark on. One of them belongs to Torvin, another to Lothariel, and the last few to the Warchiefs. I knew that branding all 5 of the Warchiefs wouldn't be an easy feat. Shadow of Mordor walked me through the first one, but surely the training wheels would come off for the remaining 4. Gathering some intel at one of the nearby towers, I was able to reveal the identity of the next boss, Darg the Bloody. I'll be getting into it when it's time, but there are a couple of ways to go about branding the Warchiefs. As it would turn out, brainwashing a captain and raising him through the ranks would be the steady but slow way of doing it. There were more direct methods. In any case, I decided to mark Lothariel's quest as my next mission. From context clues, it sounds like Torvin's quest will be his last, so I figured I'd savor the moment with him. However, I wasn't quite sure where Lothariel's questline was going, and I was eager to find out.
I don't care of the risks. It's for the well-being of the Queen.
Lady, this does not feel
Attacking
safe.
the camp would be ill-advised.
He's on our side. I have no choice, Talion. I need my mother's elixir.
Even the stranger says this is a fool's errand.
I know who she reminds you of, Talion. She is of this world. You are not.
Enough! We attack as planned.
I will take care of the orcs.
We could follow behind unseen.
We get the medicine, and we leave.
The White Wizard has taken his toll on the Queen. Only in stealth can we clear a path so Lithariel and her men may find the elixir.
Emotion fogs your way. Risk without reward is recklessness.
This medicine will clear the Queen's mind and lead to answers of your past.
Then may truth justify our alliance with these people.
As hinted at by Celebrimbor, it sounds as though Talion has feelings for Lithariel. Apparently, she reminds him of Yorith. If you're like me, you might be thinking, didn't you just witness your wife and son get murdered not days ago? It's a pretty good point, but something the game doesn't really tell you is exactly how much time has passed since the attack on Blackgate. It seems as though Talion's adventures have come one after the other. However, according to several online forums, it's believed that weeks, if not months, have gone by since Blackgate. It's not confirmed, but development in Udun points to this theory being plausible. Let's just say there was a slight delay while Celebrimbor and Talion fused together. In saying that, it's not meant to explain Talion's feelings and rationale, but maybe that might help shed some light on his personal timeline. Alright, now on to the mission at hand. Honestly, it was designed similarly to the beginning portion of the Dark Monument. There were 3 questing areas that held over half a dozen enemies each. The goal was to wipe out the orcs in those regions without raising the alarms. As I mentioned earlier in the game, I now had a new technique that I wanted to try out. While I didn't have a Caragor, I could still pop some heads and keep maximum focus. All I had to do was stay out of sight and maintain my elf shot. For the most part, that was doable for the first 2 zones. I only needed to eliminate foot soldiers and archers. However, for the 3rd and final area, the game decided to spice things up and throw in a captain. Fortunately, Luga the Tracker didn't have very many strengths. Furthermore, I could easily dispose of his nearby companions. This pretty much just made him a glorified Uruk, which I suppose is all captains are. Interestingly, throughout this whole mission, Talion has been complimenting and praising Lithariel. She does deserve the recognition, but after a while, even Celebrimbor starts to roll his eyes at him.
Did you find what you needed?
Yes. Take this to the Queen immediately.
I doubt any medicine of men will cure her queen.
Let's hope that it heals your mother.
We found this message. Orc leaders plan a gathering by the fishing village. We can prepare an ambush. I owe you a great thanks.
I'm glad to be of assistance.
We're lucky to have you.
These are not your people, Talion. Remember your wife and son.
Well, I mustn't keep you.
Yes. Every moment is precious.
Celebrimbor does have a point. Talion is only back in Arda because of his connection to the Wraith. A life with Lithariel and the tribesmen would be complicated to say the least. Plus, he still has to exact vengeance on the other black captains, and who knows what kind of havoc they'll wreak before everything is said and done. With the completion of the quest, The Cure, another one of Lithariel's missions becomes active. However, to not only calm Talion down, but to evenly spread his attention, I set my sights on Torvin's quest next. It was finally time to take on the White Graug. This is the beast that killed Torvin's hunting partner, or, as we've been able to piece together, his brother. It's also the guardian of Celebrimbor's chisel, another heirloom which will reveal more of his past.
Torvin!
Heads up, Captain! Time to go hunting!
Of course, Torvin's already halfway through the door. I suppose, though, he has been waiting for this moment for quite some time. Downing and mounting the Caragor, the dwarf and I make our way to the Graug's den. Along the way, Torvin talks his usual game. He says that hunting this Graug is going to be all about art and finesse. If I'm not careful, I'll die within seconds. I should listen to Torvin and behave like Torvin. He then tells one of his many long tales. I haven't quite gone into detail about Torvin's stories, but let's just say I wouldn't be surprised if they were fabricated, made-up experiences within a made-up experience. However, as Torvin and I near the Graug's den, he does talk a little bit about his old hunting partner again. Apparently, their last encounter with the beast was over 10 years ago. Ever since his brother's death, he's been tracking the beast down. While he's been wanting to challenge the Graug, he knows that facing it alone would be a death sentence. So really, that's why he's been working with Talion. However, Torvin had already disclosed this at their first meeting.
Whoa! The Caragors are too quiet. I don't think the Graug is home.
Then we go in and we wait.
An ambush? How military. I like it.
It's an axe.
It's just as sharp as the day our father made it.
That's right! Remember me! Come on, Captain, what are you waiting for? The Red Order!
Well, there's a lot to unpack here. For starters, in Celebrimbor's vision, it showed that he had fallen under the influence of the One Ring. Sauron was able to control Celebrimbor and had him tamper with the ring. While we don't know what was achieved, one can only assume that it made this dark artifact even more powerful. Moving along, within the cave, Torvin had found a dwarven axe and 100% confirmed that it belonged to his brother. Of course, we didn't need this confirmation, but if there was any doubt, it can now be put to rest. Then lastly, it's showdown time with the White Graug, and Torvin can't even be a part of it. The dwarf is out cold, so it's up to Talion to save them both here. The Graug fight is quite interesting. Its mechanics are relatively simple. The Graug gets angry and it charges at Talion. I shoot its head with an arrow, it runs into a wall, and I inflict damage. Really, the kicker was what happened in between each attack. Ghouls would spawn in and take aim at the Graug. This seemed nice and dandy, only they didn't actually inflict any damage. Instead, the Graug would grab the ghouls and feast on their bodies. This worked towards replenishing its health. The only things I could do here were either shoot the ghouls out of its hand, or count my losses and slay as many of the ground ghouls as possible. Honestly, I tried the former, but I found the maintenance to be too much. Without focus, I found it too tricky to time the shots, and of course, I needed to replenish my arrows after a few attempts. So, eventually it got to the point where I just let the Graug snack on a couple of the ghouls. While it was busy chowing down, I hacked and slashed away at the stragglers, cutting off its health supply. Before long, I was charging in for the final attack on the White Graug.
I think he's dead.
Well, that's what I call beast hunting, eh?
Indeed, indeed.
Next time I'm not gonna let you have all the fun.
Oh, no, no. This is the last time. I have other prey to pursue.
Well, you need help on your journey, so what do you say? We put some
No,
shadows...
Torvin. I have to do this on my own.
If you survive, come to the Blue Mountains, eh? I've lots of friends that will drink until their kegs run dry.
I've seen how much a dwarf can drink. I do hope our paths cross again.
Right. Now how do I get you out of here?
I hope that Torvin finds his way home, now that his hunt is over.
If he does, then he will find his home is not as he left it.
Well, Torvin's brother, whose name is Gorvin, by the way, how very Tolkien, has been avenged. With that too, Torvin's questline comes to an end. His journey in Mordor, his purpose, is complete. He's left a lasting impression on Talion, and I'd like to think vice versa. Because of him, the Ranger now knows how to hunt and tame the beasts of Mordor. He's also gained the ability to think like Torvin. A little bit of chaos, a little bit of impulse, but a lot of heart. And hopefully for Torvin, he now knows a bit more peace. Although I kind of doubt it. With the War of the Ring building up, just about everyone in Middle-earth will get pulled into it, whether they like it or not. Before heading off and hunting down the Warchiefs, there's just one more mission that's tied to Lothariel. I've kept Talion at bay for as long as I could, but I guess death and resurrection does something to a man. The start of this quest brings me over to one of the strongholds in Nirn. The mission itself is called The Rescue, and unfortunately for Lothariel, it appears as though she's gotten herself into some hot water.
Such a shame. If you truly know nothing, then you're of no use to me. When you're done with her, hang her high. Make sure the Grave Walker can find her.
You aren't going anywhere, Slack. Tell us where he's hiding and we'll kill you quick. Now we kill you slowly, just how I like it.
While I'm unsure if Talion's aware of it, we the viewers get to see that the tower is in town. It appears that my reputation continues to precede me, as the Black Captains are out asking questions again. Before I get ahead of myself though, we'll see if this leads anywhere beyond a rescue. As for the task at hand, this quest is broken down into multiple phases. The first is to brand 6 Uruks without raising the alarm. This has to be done in under 8 minutes. I'd say that it had its moments of being both easy and difficult. There are so many orcs around that branding 6 is no trouble at all. Supply is not the issue. Really, the kicker is staying undetected. You never know when an Uruk might turn the corner or turn around. Also, targeting a pack of them wasn't worth it either. Because of that, I found it easiest to just stick to the basics, focus my efforts on archers, and only go after secluded Uruks. By doing that, I had my 6 allies in no time.
Maybe if we make her bleed a little, she'll start talking. Down on her knees.
Here comes phase 2 of the quest. I can either kill or brand Lothariel's captors. There are 5 Uruks surrounding her, and because of that, stealth isn't the easiest option. However, there is a little exploit that I've yet to explore. Essentially, by being within eyeshot of an orc, I can press the Y button and call them over. This raises their suspicion enough to where they slowly approach Talion. By hiding behind a wall or object, I just have to wait for them to get close enough. As soon as they're within arm's reach, I can stealth brand them and turn them into followers. This worked for all 5 orcs. It's certainly a handy feature and a fun way to cheese the system, but it won't always go off without a hitch. That's something that I learned the hard way later on. Once the orcs are docile, Talion can head over to Lothariel and pick her up. This brings on phase 3. Together, they slowly hobble their way out of the stronghold, but of course, a simple exit is not in the cards. At certain milestones, packs of Uruks will come rushing in. The first time this happens, those 6 branded Uruks from earlier come to my rescue. Along with the newly brainwashed orcs, they create quite the force. Their numbers are enough to take most of the heat off of Talion and Lothariel. However, a few of the attacking Uruks are able to get through and their sights are set on her. Because of that, I have to put her down and get my hands dirty. If I'm not careful, Lothariel will take damage, and if she dies, then it's game over. Since my orcs were perishing in the battle too, I did my best to brand as many stragglers as possible. The idea being where one Uruk dies, another takes its place. Fortunately, there weren't any captains or named foes nearby. There were only foot soldiers, and they were simple enough to handle. While carrying Lothariel, Talion and her engage in some conversation. She tells him that the tower had captured and killed all of her men. She was left alive for interrogation, as we saw in the earlier cutscene. However, she says that she didn't break, and that she kept Talion's identity and whereabouts a secret. Lothariel vows to take revenge on the tower, but Talion tells her that for now, she should focus on rallying her troops and staying alive. As they get closer to the exit, both Talion and Lothariel tell each other that they've proven their faith to one another.
Here, rest here.
Why are you doing this?
To stop the bleeding.
No. Why did you come back to save me?
I had a family once. A wife. And a son. And I buried them along with everyone I ever knew.
Stay with us. My mother can help you.
I can't. I don't belong here.
You will be a champion to my people.
Over there! And you walk on your own.
Is that your answer?
Milady! Help her.
Let me help.
You need to leave this place immediately. It's not safe.
Thank you, Ranger.
Well, Talion was faced with an interesting decision. Continue with his mission, or bunker down with the tribesmen and explore a possible future with Lothariel. In the end, he chose his purpose over starting anew. He set his feelings of compassion and empathy aside, and instead sent honor and determination to the front. Well, that's not the very last we see of the tribesmen. For now, there are bigger fish to fry. It's officially time to face down Nirn's Warchiefs. One of their showdown missions just so happened to be right by the ending spot of Lothariel's quest. So, with zero preparation and no bodyguards killed, I decided to go straight for Darg the Bloody. He lorded over the same stronghold that Lothariel was being held in. In my opinion, this was a pretty difficult area to infiltrate. Unlike previous strongholds, I didn't feel as though there were decent vantage points in this one. Nothing seemed very high up. Really, there was only one tower at the center of the stronghold, and that barely got off the ground. That meant that my usual tactic of climbing to safety would not hold up very well. Plus, a lot of the stronghold was made up of boardwalks and platforms. That meant that they only had to keep their eyes in 2 directions, making it harder for me to remain undetected. I'd say out of all the Warchiefs, Darg's mission took me the longest to complete. It wasn't even necessarily due to the assassination portion. If anything, the draw out process was the real kicker. I had to kill 5 of Darg's supporters with combat or ground executions. That meant targeting select Uruks and causing a ruckus in the middle of the stronghold. Most of the time, I'd get close to the supporters and would be about 1 move away from an execution. However, it always resulted in alarms and anger from the surrounding orcs. Plus, like I said earlier, escaping was not as easy as climbing a nearby tower. Eventually, I did come up with a sort of decent game plan. By branding these somewhat isolated Uruks, I could quickly get a hold of them and throw them to the ground. That would fast track the combat portion, and from there, I could get a ground execution in. Honestly, there were probably a bunch of different ways to go about this mission, and I didn't do myself any favors by being unprepared. Slowly, the number of kills ticked upwards, and after a whopping 23 minutes, I managed to secure all 5. With that, Darg the Bloody arrived on scene, and he brought not 1, not 2, but 3 bodyguards. Truly, I had no clue what I was going to do here. I couldn't take on 3 captains, 1 warchief, and a small army of orcs. Branding would only get me so far, and like I said, I struggled with it at this stronghold. For a while, I just watched Darg and observed his habits. I learned the hard way that he was invulnerable to ranged attacks as well as stealth takedowns. However, the warchief would often run on ahead and leave his bodyguards behind. He'd hop up or down a platform and isolate himself for a couple of seconds. Utilizing these moments, I'd be able to get some licks in on Darg. Wraith stuns, combos, just about anything that moved his health bar down. The kicker on this though is that when they came, I'd have to take every single opportunity. The Warchief's health would slowly increase over time, and in order to not be here for another half an hour, I'd have to minimize time in between each attack. Eventually, I caught a lucky break and managed to get Darg and his followers on a small platform. This made it easier to focus the Warchief, and before long, he was down for the count. Normally, the Warchief gets on one knee, says their last words, and then it's off to the QuickTime event. However, with the option to now brand them, I can instead choose to dominate Darg, and that puts him on my side of the war. Just like that, that's 2 Warchiefs in my corner, and now I'm free to move on to the next 3. From here, I had my pick between Gollum the Humiliator or Fulgrim of the Welts. Honestly, I liked the way Fulgrim's Showdown mission sounded. Descend on his supporters to draw out the Warchief. I didn't think this meant anything other than stealth killing the Uruks from above, one of my favorite forms of takedowns. Plus, I figured at this point, I deserved to have an easier time drawing out the Warchief. So, entering the outpost of Ethirporos, I managed to get my 3 kills off no problem. I simply camped at a bridge, held onto the ledge, waited for Uruks to arrive, and repeatedly dropped down on their heads. In no time, Fulgrim arrived on site and things could not have gone any better. Except when it came time to kill Fulgrim. Remember everyone, don't be like me. Read the Warchief's strengths and weaknesses. I assumed that since his mission was all about stealth takedowns, Fulgrim would be vulnerable to an attack from above. Well, it turns out that he was not only vulnerable to it, it would end up being his Achilles heel. Fulgrim of the Welts died on the spot. There was no banter, no fight, no option to brand and dominate him. He just died. This effectively failed the mission, and a new Uruk by the name of Gollum Sawbones took his place. So, I ended up learning the hard way that you have to be really careful about how you approach the Warchiefs. Sometimes, their weaknesses end up working against you. So, taking it in stride, I quickly moved along to Fulgrim's replacement, Gollum. His showdown mission was pretty simple, perhaps just as easy as Fulgrim's. I just had to traverse the new stronghold and break 4 Caragors out of their cages. This could obviously be done from afar, and what's more, the beasts would take out a few Uruks in the process. Once 3 and 4 were released, Gollum Sawbones and his 3 bodyguards arrived on scene. Normally, I'd be scheming and biding my time. However, now seemed like the perfect time to strike. There were 2 Caragors loose in his vicinity, all of the nearby orcs were dead, and what's more, I had a man on the inside. During Darg's mission, I had branded and dominated a captain. The very same Uruk ended up becoming one of Gollum's new bodyguards. So, at worst, I'd take on Gollum and a captain while my thrall distracted the other. The wild card, of course, would be the Caragors. Would they fight for me, or would they just get in the way? Well, they'd end up dying as soon as I entered the battle, so it didn't make much of a difference in the end. However, the fight definitely went in my favor. My thrall was able to defeat both of the other bodyguards, Feldish Caragor Fang and Maku Mapkeeper. Before long, Gollum was down for the count, and just like Darg, I took control of his mind. This allowed me to identify the 5th and final Warchief, Ishmael's Nightbringer. As for the decision on which Warchief to take on next, I'd say the game made that choice for me. Gollum the Humiliator's starting point was in the exact same spot as Gollum's, just outside of the stronghold. Gollum's showdown mission was also a breeze. If you remember Mog, the first Warchief that I ever slew, his draw process was the same as Gollum's. Kill some berserkers. This could be done in any manner. Elf shot, stealth, face-to-face combat, take your pick. Once all 5 marks were down, Gollum arrived on scene. Of course, he had his entourage with him. 3 bodyguards seemed to be the norm at this point. 100% I could always seek out each captain individually and make this process a lot easier. But at the same time, I kind of like the problem-solving factor that came with this style of gameplay. It adds a little extra spice and unpredictability to the matchup. Now, have you ever heard of the acronym KISS? It stands for Keep It Simple Stupid. Gollum's long list of strengths and weaknesses did not include anything about ranged. That meant that he was vulnerable to elf shot, shadow strikes, and dagger throws. During my first interaction with him, I got his health down to a sliver. This was perfect. Just one more combo and he was done for. However, it was here that Gollum decided to retreat. The smart and simple thing to do here would have been to let him flee. This way, he isolates himself from his captains, and with 2 arrows left in the bank, I could have shadow struck over and finished him off. Instead, I decided to grab him and keep him in the fight. This put me at the mercy of his diverse captains. They each had different movesets and mechanics. While I struggled to close the deal on Gollum, one of his bodyguards ended up delivering the killing blow. Skog the Foul, a hunter captain, lodged a spear in Talion's chest and gave me my first death. So here's what happens after that. All of the captains and warchiefs involved in my killing get their power levels raised. This means that they'll now be tougher enemies to kill. They gain more strengths, their attacks deal more damage, etc. Next, the power struggles of Nirn get resolved. Captains challenge one another and the survivors get their power levels increased. Following that, any vacant warchief or captain role gets filled. The lesser captains move up on the Nemesis chart and new Uruks get promoted to captains and bodyguards. While dying doesn't really have an effect on Talion, it does make a difference to the rest of the world. Time progresses, enemies get stronger, and my job becomes more difficult. When I first played the game, I distinctly remember dying to one of the captains over and over again. That Uruk's power level went through the roof, and it got to the point where he probably could have given Sauron a run for his money. That's my way of saying, in Shadow of Mordor, dishonor before death. If the battle's a little too close, I think it's better to just get out of dodge and reset. Don't let the Uruks get the jump on Talion, or else you'll have multiple Dark Lords to take care of. After my resurrection, the waypoints of Nirn shifted around a bit. Gollum and Ishmaz's starting points were now in different strongholds. A little humiliated after my fight with Gollum, I decided to try my luck with the Nightbringer. Plus, his showdown mission was pretty close to my current Forge Tower. In terms of drawing out Ishmaz, again, nothing too bad. I just had to kill 5 of his supporters without raising the alarm. So, Elf Shot, Shadow Strike, Backstabs, Drop-ins, anything that did not raise suspicion was fair game. Before long, the Warchief arrived on site. This time, I did my due diligence and looked at his report. Ishmaz was vulnerable to stealth takedowns, meaning a simple drop-in would kill him instantly. So, I figured my best chance at success was to just face him head on. A good old-fashioned duel. I was lucky in that Ishmaz had similar tendencies to Dark. He'd leave his bodyguards behind and venture off to secluded parts of the stronghold. Taking advantage of those moments, I tore him a new one and downed him over and over again, until finally, the Nightbringer had surrendered. Dominating and branding him, that made for 4 of the 5 warchiefs crossed off the list. Now, all I needed to do was reface Gollum. With him on my side, that would open up the battlefield to the tower and the hand. Fortunately, Gollum's showdown mission began right outside of the same stronghold. In fact, this objective was a new one, and arguably the easiest of the bunch. I just had to stay hidden and reach a waypoint at the center of the stronghold. That was it. A little bit of running here, a little bit of climbing there, and finally, a well-placed shadow strike would end up doing the trick. As soon as I hit the tower, Gollum and his bodyguards arrived on scene. This time, I wasn't taking any chances, at least for the beginning of the fight. I laid into the Warchief via Elf Shot. This managed to do a number on his health. From there, I continued to wear him down, and thinking the moment was right, with a sliver of health left, I shadow struck for a finisher. Unfortunately, this would not be the killing blow. He still had just enough health left to call for a tactical retreat. Gollum booked it for the fields of Nirn, and I followed suit. Honestly, this would end up being an incredibly long chase sequence. I only had 1 arrow left, meaning that a Shadow Strike teleportation move was not an option. As far as I could tell, there weren't any restock points for Elf Shot, and there weren't any Caragors to mount and ride. My best bet was to perform some minor parkour, activate the Wraith Dash, and cross my fingers that I'd get close enough. To my delight, this would end up working, and what's more, I had one more trick up my sleeve. Because Gollum was vulnerable to ranged attacks, I could lob some daggers in his direction and stagger his movements. This was more than enough to catch up to him, and through that, I could deplete the rest of his health. Soon, I had branded and dominated Gollum. All 5 warchiefs and their armies were under my control. That was enough to end this segment of the main story and to bring on the next quest. The starting point for this mission would end up leading me to the shorelines of Nirn. After all, Queen Marwen did say that the Hand and the Tower were across the Sea of Nirnen. The in-game description for this one was plain and simple. Talion's forces await his command. It's finally time to launch an assault on the Black Hand.
We wish to thank you for coming to our aid, Captain.
Aye. Never realized my smuggling could be so appreciated by the Queen. Lady.
They're here.
Orcs. Well, they make bad passengers. But I've carried worse. Lady. Keep that plank level. Oi, touch nothing.
Queen Marwen. It's good to see you in better health.
The boats are ready. The skippers have been briefed on your destination.
Good.
How long will those orcs obey you?
Well, I should think as long as I like. I'm in your debt.
We owe you our lives, Talion.
Just put an end to this madness.
My lady.
Shrok has bled us bad, bled us hard. Shrok has butchered us, stole our minds, stole our will, taking Mordor. No more, no more!
Drown the air with Uruk cries, and the earth with Uruk blood!
As shown in the meeting between Talion and Lithariel, there's clearly still unresolved tension there. Things that both of them need to get off their chest. Either way, I suppose it doesn't really matter now, does it? Also, Queen Marwen is certainly looking a lot healthier. I know there were some concerns before with regards to her medicine, but it appears that time heals all wounds. As for the task at hand, it's certainly a different and unique mission. One of the Uruk captains from Nirn, Olgoth Baghead, is this fortress's first line of defense. Him and a small army of orcs stand between Talion and the Black Captains. As for Talion, he only has the support of his warchiefs here. While numbers matter, combat experience and strengths are arguably more important. I'd take 5 good warchiefs over dozens of soldiers. Each warchief took on their fair share of Uruks. The enemy split into groups and surrounded each of my allies. As for me, I had my own small battalion to deal with. Included in that roster was Olgoth Baghead. At first, it was kind of difficult to isolate him. The other Uruks kept disrupting my combos, and due to the nature of this quest, I erred on the side of caution for a majority of the battle. I didn't know what was going to happen next, and I didn't see any icons to replenish my health or elf shot. However, as the fight raged on, the Uruks would slowly get picked off by my warchiefs. Before long, Olgoth had barely any supporters left, and I was free to wreak havoc. For the captain, there was no option of branding or dominating him. It was only death. After his execution, the warchiefs picked off the surviving orcs, and my objective had updated. The icon now depicted the Eye of Sauron, a sign that I was going to face off against a Black Captain. As Talion and Celebrimbor enter the fortress, the two of them practically say the classic line, "It's quiet, too quiet." There were no captains, orcs, Uruks, ghouls, Caragors, humans, or any signs of life for that matter. The keep looked deserted and as though it had long since been abandoned.
I wasn't expecting you. I hope my soldiers gave you welcome.
Where are you? Show yourself!
This is the work of the Tower. The Black Hand went looking for you.
great pleasure to take you myself. Bow to me. And I will deliver you to the Dark Lord, unspoiled. We bow to no one. The Dark Lord forgives you, Celebrimbor. Return to him and cast off this human corpse.
Stand up and fight.
There's no need, Ranger. Celebrimbor is your curse. He chose you. Silence! And he can release you at any time. Yes, that's all you are, Ranger. A vessel for the Ringmaker. As you wish.
Well, that's certainly a bit of a bombshell. This whole time, Celebrimbor has been telling Talion that he's cursed and that the two of them were bound together by fate. Due to the blood sacrifice, they've both been banished from death. However, that's revealed to have been a lie. Celebrimbor chose Talion. The Wraith latched onto the Ranger and has been essentially riding him ever since. According to the tower, at any point, the Elf Lord could easily jump out of Talion's body and grant him his desired death. However, that doesn't lessen Talion's desire for revenge and justice. In any case, we'll see what becomes of that revelation after. But first, it's time to face the tower. Honestly, this boss fight was kind of strange. It was a far cry off from what I had to deal with while facing the hammer. There wasn't actually a fight, not in the traditional sense. It was more like a timed challenge. I had 8 minutes to continuously stealth drain the tower. Clones of the Black Captain would wander around the fortress grounds. They'd have their set patrol paths, and from there, it would be up to me to drain them. I could creep up from behind, I could jump down from below, I could climb up from a ledge. It really wasn't that difficult. At no point did the tower raise a weapon against me. There never came a time where I got to let off a combo or had to block/evade his attacks. It was all relatively linear and easy enough. During this phase, the tower would communicate to Talion and get in his head. He'd bring up Dirhael and Yorith. He'd try to tear Talion down, and he'd also ask him questions like, why do you still fight, and don't you wish to join them? It was here too that I'd hear Yorith's voice and the sounds of her humming. It was the same tune that she used to sing at the Black Gate. Occasionally, she too would say things like, why did you let us die, and we're dead because of you. Clearly, this was a tactic to get Talion worked up, but luckily, he was able to keep his nerve and remain focused on the tower.
You will never see your family again.
You said we were cursed. You deceived me.
It was Sauron's doing. This was your doing!
should have died with my family.
I thought you wanted revenge. I can't leave you. But there is only one way to close the circle. The Black Hand remains.
Not for long. None is in flames. We must return to Queen Marwen.
The Black Hand has been here. I can feel it.
Lothariel.
I'd say that for now, Talion took the news relatively well. Obviously, he's angry with Celebrimbor for the deception, but he and the Elf Lords share the same mindset. The servants of Sauron must be dealt with, not just for the deaths of Talion's family, but for the pain and suffering they've brought to all of Middle-earth. As it stands, 2 of the 3 Black Captains are dead, the Hammer and the Tower. Now all that remains is the Hand, although I deem him as the most mysterious. Plus, if there was to be a leader amongst the 3 of them, I'd assume it to be him. That night at Blackgate, it seemed as though the Hammer and the Tower were following his lead. In any case, it looks like the Black Hand is exacting his revenge on the outcasts, just as Talion said he would. Much of Mordor is in flames, and any enemy of Sauron's will have surely felt his fury. Figuring this to be the no going back portion of the story, I pumped as many ability points into my upgrades as possible, spent my remaining Mirian, and opened up new rune slots on my weapons. The final showdown was here, and who knows what Talion will have to go through before it's all over.
I am not worth your vengeance, Father. Why do you fight?
We will be together soon. Forever.
Soon, Celebrimbor. Soon.
Nasty beasts. We want this. But we took it from them.
Ishi Krimpatul. It was mine to keep.
Where did they hide it? Where?
Be gone.
The precious is ours. Ours!
Sauron knows we're here.
Let's not keep him waiting.
Unpacking the cutscene, Gollum ended up making one final appearance. Through his help, we got to see that Celebrimbor did not in fact fall prey to Sauron's influence, although he did give into the ring's temptation. For an undisclosed amount of time, he was a ring bearer for the One Ring. We'll find out soon enough where that could have led to. Towards the end of the scene, we saw that Mount Doom, the birthplace of the One Ring, had erupted. This was preceded by Celebrimbor and Talion acknowledging that Sauron knows they're coming. There's no longer an element of surprise when it comes to the showdown with the Hand. Not that there ever really was one anyways. As for current events, it's currently Talion's forces against Sauron's. My Uruks did a good job at clearing a path to the Black Gate, but there's still one final battalion we need to get through. Every hand has 5 fingernails. In this case, the Black Captain has 5 talons, aka 5 servants of his own. They command the last defense of the Black Gate. Each talon has their own unique build, comprising of the various classes I've encountered on my journey. Hunters, archers, berserkers, defenders, assassins, the like. So, it's my warchiefs and a handful of foot soldiers against their captains and Uruks. With each of their deaths, I can hear a disembodied voice, likely Sauron's, saying something in black speech. It's probably meant to be a taunt or threat aimed at Talion and Celebrimbor. During this matchup, a couple of my warchiefs ended up perishing in battle. Grublik and Gollum were the first to go. While I salute their sacrifice, they were still orcs. Nothing more than pawns who played their role in this big game of chess. Before long, the 5th Talon of the Hand was defeated. This left an open lane up to the Black Gate, and what's more, there were piles of runes on the ground. Every Talon dropped a rune, and all of my fallen warchiefs left a little something behind as well. These were decent runes too, things that would come in handy for the late game. As I began my ascension, Celebrimbor told Talion what would happen next. With the Hand defeated, Sauron can no longer take form. He'd be nothing more than a shadow over Mordor. While still a threat, he'd certainly be less dangerous than while connected to the final Black Captain. It's imperative that Talion succeeds here, as the fate of Middle-earth depends on it.
I have a gift for you, Celebrimbor. The Dark Lord gave you a second chance to stand by his side. Now I give you no choice. We shall be sealed together in death. So be it. Return to me,
From here, Sauron manifests himself through the Black Hand. He's attached himself to Celebrimbor, and with his power, Sauron can once again dominate Middle-earth. Talion, bleeding and dying, puts up a last stand against the Dark Lord. It isn't much of a fight. It's a series of quick-time events. The Ranger dodges and rolls away from Sauron's swings. As he winds up for the finishing blow, Celebrimbor is able to freeze the Dark Lord, allowing for Talion to retaliate and finish what he had started.
Talion, my heart, we will be together soon. Forever.
The Black Hand of Sauron is dead. The Hither Shore is calling us. This is no longer our battle. I tried fighting you. It can't be done.
Could you really rest for all of eternity, knowing that you had the chance to stop him, but did nothing? The time has come for a new ring.
And with that, the end credits start to roll. Thus completes the main story for Middle-earth, Shadow of Mordor. All three Black Captains are dead. The outcasts have fled Mordor. Torvin is on his way back to the Blue Mountain. It isn't really stated what's become of Marwyn and Lithariel. We don't get much of a wrap-up for their storyline, but I suppose we can assume they're still alive and relatively safe. Talion's family has been avenged, Celebrimbor can finally rest, and for now, the armies of Mordor are scattered. Only, it seems like Talion and Celebrimbor's work is not yet finished. Looking on at the big boss, Talion decides to fully finish what he had started. He's no longer content with the hand, tower, and hammer. He wants Sauron as well. Of course, Celebrimbor won't put up a fight, because that was his main goal all along, to take revenge on the Dark Lord. If you didn't know, there is a direct sequel to this game called Middle-earth: A Shadow of War. It came out in 2017 and more or less picks off where this plot ended. Soon enough, I'll be visiting that title too. Now, before signing off, there are a couple of things I just wanted to go back on and discuss. As revealed through the cutscene with the hand, Celebrimbor attempted to use the ring to defeat Sauron. While noble and admirable, it of course did not work. And so, that's how Celebrimbor was captured and slain. From there, the servants of Sauron performed the blood sacrifice on Talion and his family. This summoned Celebrimbor from the dead. Sauron had hoped that the Elf Lord would have attached himself to the hand, as that would have brought him up to full power from the get-go. However, Celebrimbor instead chose Talion as his vessel, and the rest is history. As for the fight with the Black Hand, I wasn't all too impressed. It was even more dumbed down than the fight with the tower, and I didn't think that could be possible. I understand maybe wanting to switch things up for each boss fight, but I think there are things that Monolith could have improved upon. For the tower, they could have kept the whole stealth drain section in, and then, at the end, maybe just do a simple one-on-one duel. Since his shtick is deception and psychic abilities, maybe spawn in a couple of clones and have the player find the right one. Then, for the hand, the final boss of the game, I think we deserved more than what we got. A simple and fast quick-time event. Maybe it could have been where the player inflicts enough damage to the hand, Celebrimbor freezes him, the player goes in for a quick-time sequence, and the process repeats. The last two boss fights just felt a little too rushed and a little too easy. They stand out even more since the fight with the hammer was fleshed out and had difficulty and depth to it. To me, it was just a bit of a strange design choice. In any case, here are the Sparks notes on my thoughts towards the game. Overall, I really enjoyed it. The gameplay itself was incredibly fun and addicting. The combat is satisfying, ever-changing, and diverse. The Nemesis system is of course the award winner for Shadow of Mordor. It's what keeps the game fresh, alive, and relevant for many fans. I liked how I got to visit 2 regions of Mordor, Udun and Nirn. I wasn't expecting a field trip over to the south of Mordor, and again, it helped to keep the gameplay fresh. I'd say my favorite quest lines were Hirgon's and Ratbag's. I liked hearing about Talion's past, enjoyed the ranger camaraderie, and it really felt like I was embarking on these undercover, behind enemy line type of missions. As for Ratbag, I found his story to be told from an incredibly unique viewpoint. In practically every single story of Tolkien's universe, orcs are portrayed as being purely evil. I don't recall there ever being a time where they work with men or any of the other races. This was, at the very least, my first time encountering a quote, friendly orc. He worked alongside Talion and together they both got what they had wanted. While there's a great chance he would have betrayed Talion, the story never got to that part, so for now, I'd say innocent until proven guilty. Honestly, I didn't feel strongly about Gollum or Lothariel's questline. It was neat to see Celebrimbor's past and it helped to paint the bigger picture, but really it only felt like I had learned useful information during the Nirn portion of the game. As for Lothariel and Queen Marwen, I was semi-interested in the connection between Talion and the Queen's daughter, but it ended up falling flat. He rejected her, they had a tense, awkward encounter, and that was it. We never heard from her or the Queen again. While branding Uruks and creating an army of orcs was by far the coolest feature of the game, the backstory to Marwen and her possession just didn't interest me all that much. Then lastly, and I hate to say it, my least favorite quest line was Torvin's. Don't get me wrong, I love the dwarves. They're my favorite race within the Lord of the Rings universe. However, I just had zero interest in his missions. I think they came at a really strange time in the game. It took over half of the main story to be completed in order to get Caragor riding lessons. The same thing went for Graug lessons. To me, the former is something you introduce at the start of the game. And trust me, while it's neat to mount and ride Graugs, I can probably count on one hand the number of times I actually saw those beasts. They're not rare by any means and can certainly add an interesting layer of gameplay to Shadow of Mordor. However, I'm personally of the mindset that these mechanics were presented to the player a little too late in the game. I suppose to give them credit though, they did come right before the second wave of Warchief hunts and could be used for those missions, so credit where credit is due. Overall though, Torvin's missions just didn't feel compelling to me. He didn't have much of a character arc, his quests didn't add all that much to the main story, and frankly, I didn't find them to be that fun. Either way, it only made up 3 of the many quests in the game, and they didn't leave a sour taste in my mouth or anything of the sorts. I still really enjoyed the story that was told, and I'm excited to get into Shadow of War. Thank you all for coming along this journey with me. I'd love to know your thoughts on the story down below, and until next time, keep on adventuring.